Hello, Alaska. Thank you for tuning in for another day of Meet the Candidates. We are here with LD Howard, who is running for State House District number 9. And I'd like to always give a big shout out to the Windbreak Hotel here at Trout House here in Wasilla, Alaska, for providing us this space to be able to hold these interviews in. And LD Howard, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where is District 9? And
District 9 is a huge district. It goes from Northeast Palmer, mainly Farm Loop, Fish Hook area, Soapstone, all the way through to Sutton, all the way up to Delta Junction, all the way over to Valdez, and then down to Whittier. So, I mean, Glen Allen, Parters Copper Center, Nocina, Chickaloon, Sutton, Fish Hook, Farm Loop, Delta, Paxson. It's a huge area, guys. I've put a lot of miles on my truck in the past month. But then again, I've seen a lot of really beautiful places, met a lot of amazing people, and looking at some places I'd almost would rather live, to be honest with you. I'm pretty fond of the unorganized borough up around Delta Junction area. I like the fact that it's more farm ground, it's more country community, and you don't have to pay taxes on your property for the rest of your life. You're not renting your property for the rest of your life, and that's definitely something I think is pretty appealing to someone like me who's more liberty and freedom based.
I can agree with you on that one, and that is one hell of a large area that you could be covering there.
It's big.
A lot of people don't realize that the more rural you get in the geographics that you have, the larger your territory becomes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, and my area is kind of funny too, just because it's little communities or mid-sized communities and just a lot of empty ground, and so covering it, it's a lot of miles between, meet and greets, and a lot of miles between little forums, and a lot of miles between door knocking and whatnot. So a lot of time spent on the road, kind of in my thoughts and on the phone. My phone doesn't stop much. Actually, this is kind of a welcome relief. We're turning them off right now and get to talk, and I'm not being inundated with phone calls, but I'm not complaining. It's good to be popular right now. It's good to have people ask me questions, and I love the questions. Anything, I'll field anything. You guys want to call me up, ask me anything, I'm an open book. So,
well, that's good to hear, and I know you've never hesitated to take one of my phone calls out there, and I don't hesitate to call legislators that are out there and running or in office. Got a lot of issues to cover, a lot of different things that are happening within our state right now, from the coronavirus pandemic to state budgets that are out of control, legislators that think that they're doing what is best for all Alaskans, making claims that they vote this way for us all the time, and then when it comes to the actual votes that count, they completely flip and go against everything that they had been saying they had been doing since day one. Let's go for the very first, the obvious question, and I ask every candidate that's running out there: what do you think of our binding caucus rule? And I want to elaborate on this. I personally called it the illegal
binding caucus. I watch your videos. No, I think it's perfect. I mean, I just had a meeting yesterday in Anchorage with a bunch of people. It's kind of a think tank that comes together. It's Alaska Roundtable, and yeah, there's a lot going on with Save Alaska and open Anchorage, Save Anchorage, things like that they're doing on the side. That is very nice to see that people are standing up, and that's the one benefit to this COVID is, yes, we have had some loss of life, but it's nothing new. And I'm not belittling anyone's deaths or anyone that has lost family members, friends. I'm not, but it happens with many, many things. We can go from heart disease to influenza to you name it. I mean, there's always something out there that we can use. But if we're looking at the mortality rates, if we're looking at the economical impacts that we are just propagating on us intentionally, I don't understand it. I know that right now we're around 25 deaths last time I heard.
Yeah.
And from what I understand is last year, the influenza, the flu, killed anywhere from 86 to 87. I know I'm not perfect on those numbers, guys, but around 85 people died. And so we're not even at the levels of we're a quarter of the levels of the flu? I mean, a third of the levels of the flu?
Not even a third yet.
Not even a third yet. And yet, what we're doing to our economy and what we're doing to our schools and what we're doing to, parents are having to rewrite their whole game plan. And there's so many things this ties into. And the tentacles on this COVID deal and the breakneck, how do I say this? unwell thought out, just kind of fly-by-wire plans. They keep throwing at it, seeing which will stick.
Plan but no plan.
Yeah.
Here's our next flavor of the day, because and then we got mayors that are dictating to us, literally being a dictator.
Yeah.
Throwing out to us numbers that are from the lower 48 and trying to compare that to what's happening here in Alaska.
We're basically guinea pigs. We're guinea pigs. And the thing about it is, it's refreshing to see, though, is to see those people who are standing up and to see help coming from, whether it be even, cross-party lines or different gamuts of life, watching lawyers that are pro bono, offering their services to, the restaurants that are staying open, Kreiners and some other people like that are staying open. There's lawyers that are helping them out. There's people who are donating money saying, hey, you're standing, we stand with you. And that unity, albeit that I know it upsets our Mayor Berkowitz, not my mayor, but thank God.
I know many that agree with that.
But yeah, it's nice to see people doing this.
I'm not going to give much credit to our mayor out here in Wasilla neither. I know I hadn't had a chance to discuss that with you, but I was went to a grocery store last night, and I had a couple of the employees there come and corner me inside of the establishment because they know what I do on the sideline here. And they wanted me to make sure that I knew that the mayor of Wasilla came up to them and told them that because they're not enforcing mask policies, their own employees are not wearing masks, that either they change their ways or they're going to come in there and find ways to shut them down because they got their doors open. And this includes from restaurants to grocery stores. And this just happens to be a grocery store that I was in at the time. And I looked at him point blank and I said, have you had any reported cases come from your own employee staff? None since day one. They've been completely clean. Same people that have been stocking the shelves are the same, and checking people out of the door and everything else are the same people that have been there since the start of the COVID crisis. Then I looked at him and I said, why is the big complaint? And they said, well, the mayor came out and said it's because people are driving all the way from Anchorage to come out here to the valley to do their grocery shopping, to go to the restaurants and everything else. And they can't handle that because this particular store doesn't have anything on their doors.
Right.
Doesn't tell them that they have to wear a mask. I mean, they're running business just like it was before the crisis.
Right.
And the only thing that they have is that plastic shield at the checkout place is the only thing they have there. Because that's the only real mandate we have out here in the valley.
So you're saying that the people from Anchorage are complaining after they come out here to shop here because it's less restrictive?
That's my best guess of why the mayor is stepping inside of it. This particular place is upset because they've got an overwhelming crowd of people coming there to shop because they are not enforcing people to wear masks inside of there. You go in there, so you see people wearing masks. You see people that are not wearing masks. It's a very open environment that's going in there, but they're doing phenomenal business. They're taking away the complaint of the mayor is that you're taking away from the business in Anchorage because people are coming out here to buy their stuff. You need to stop that. You need to be more like Walmart, more like Kmart, and enforce these policies. You can't walk in without a mask.
No, this is Mayor Cottle.
Yes.
See, I like Mayor Cottle, actually. He's helped out quite a bit with our Second Amendment stuff, especially with the borough stuff. I mean, he's been a great help with that stuff. I think if people actually talk to the mayor, I mean, he's a very reasonable guy. I think if people talk to him and said, Bert, stand for your constituents, not for Anchorage complaining to you, he would. Bert's a stand-up guy. We may not always agree politically on certain things, but I think he's fair. I think he's honest. He's definitely pro-Second Amendment. He's pro-First Amendment. He's a good guy. So I think if that keeps becoming an issue, I think people should just give him a call and he will listen. Like I said, I respect Mayor Cottle.
I hope so, especially with, like we were just discussing a second ago, Mayor Berkowitz.
Yeah. Oh no, Mayor Cottle is much different than Ethan Berkowitz.
And speaking of Berkowitz, I want to. You're going into our state legislator. I would think, as a legislator in the state of Alaska, and You got 60 people that are voted into office that are there to represent all Alaskans. We have maybe 3 or 4 that have actually spoke up about what is going on in Anchorage right now.
Right.
And I find it disgusting that we've got legislators that are supposed to be representing our rights, our freedoms, supposed to be making sure that what is best for all Alaskans is happening, and they're silent.
Yep.
Not hearing a word. They're just letting this go on as if nothing is wrong. I know you're not afraid to speak out about it.
No. Actually, I'll be honest though. I will be honest. I have not worn a mask up until going to Valdez. Valdez, it's in my district. It's, in my area, and it was the only place that mandated a mask.
Okay.
And so I went there campaigning last week, had a great time, met some great people, amazing people, especially Allison, Caleb, Dana, Alan, a few other people. Thank you so much for all you guys helped out with that. But when I got there, it was that mayor decided that's the mandate for Jeremy. I'm trying to remember his last name. Jeremy decided that, or Mayor Jeremy decided that was the mandate there, and so I abided by it. And my son was just looking at me like, "Dad, really?" I'm like, "Yeah, we got to." And so, I wore a mask for the first time since this whole thing started. Actually, in my gun store, I don't really let people wear masks much. I'm like, hey, take it off. You're in here, you're safe, you're fine.
It's a gun store.
It's a gun store, yeah.
I don't want a masked person in there with guns around in the first place.
Well, I just actually even today, it was funny because today I was over at Fred Meyer's and they asked if I wanted a mask. I said no, thank you. Walked in there and I always carry my weapon. I always carry a firearm on me and everything like that. And someone said, "This is just ridiculous. We all look like we're going to rob the bank." I said, "Yeah, that's probably the reason I don't wear a mask." I said, "All I need is a red bandana with my gun on my side, and it looks like the Old West again." And everyone got a big kick out of it. And actually, it opened up some business because someone needs a gunship. So, networking while I'm dropping off donations. I got some good donations lately. So, yeah, it's funny that people. It's nice to see people are starting to get a sense of humor about it. It's nice to see that people. Well, they're fed up, but they're fed up to the point where it's we're just going to laugh it off. We're done with this lunacy. We're done with the constant mandates. We're done with the mask shaming of other people. I don't shame people who wear them. I'm not like, hey, you're a sheep, or hey, that mask does nothing for you. It's already been proven. I don't feel a need to sit there and try to impose my will against their freedom or liberty. And so, I just find it really odd that people are being shamed into wearing them. But people aren't being shamed into saying, hey, you've seen the science, you've seen everything about this, why are you still wearing them? It doesn't do good for your O2 sats, it doesn't do good for your oxygenation level, it doesn't do good for a lot of things. It's basically breathing hot, warm air all the time.
And it's not like they're all wearing the one mask that would help them, which is like the N95 or above standard mask.
I've seen pantyhose. That was a good one. I was pretty impressed with pantyhose across somebody's face. That was a good one. But that's the thing about this thing is no matter if I prescribe to it or I don't, people ultimately have their freedom. People ultimately have their liberty. And if people want to be fearful of it, fine. If they don't, fine. That's what makes this state and this country so great is we have that freedom. We have that liberty to do the things we see fit for us.
They all the time I see them trying to throw out like the Spanish flu. Remember what happened during the Spanish flu? It became a mandatory mask policy back then. But I always throw right back at them, well, unlike the Spanish flu, we're not losing our young. We're not losing our youth that are under the age of 30. We're not losing in mass numbers people under the age of 50. We only have those that are in high risk, critical conditions that either already have major underlying diseases that are going to cause, they're already on their, not to sound cruel or inhuman here, but they've already got things that are not in their favor that are killing them already.
Right.
And then to sit there and try to blame it on the coronavirus, comparing it to that pandemic to this pandemic is ludicrous.
Yeah.
If we were losing our youth, if we were losing the middle-aged type people to this virus on a regular basis, yes, I could see it being a very critical thing to be happening. But 99.8% survival rate under the age of 55.
We just got to talk about the flu and pneumonia.
Yeah.
There's much more deaths to that, but yet we don't mask up every time, there's an outbreak of the flu.
Yeah.
Is that something that's the thing is, are we training ourselves now to where every time the flu numbers go up, are we going to have to start shutting everything down and mask up? because right now our mortality rate on that is higher than what it is right now for COVID.
You're just
So
pointing
it's
out
just
the
going to keep
numbers.
segueing us into more willful compliance on everything the government dictates to us. And that's a scary, scary thing. I think, I even talked to this before, the most scary part about this out of everything, it's not even the mask, not anything else like that, it was the fact they shut down churches. When it's very clearly our First Amendment, the very first, number one, our freedom of religion. They shut it down. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, shut it down.
Right.
If that doesn't scare people, I don't know what does. If people choose, many people believe that faith alleviates fear. I'm one of those people. I believe if we have faith, what do we really have to fear? So, and not being able to worship the way we should or the way we feel that we should is a direct violation of the Constitution. Why? For 25 deaths in this state? And like I said, I have compassion and empathy for those deaths, but people die every day. So I think we just need to really realize what we stand for, what we believe in, what we're willing to fight for, and this is probably the most pivotal part. What is the role of government? It is not to make these mandates and to dictate everything. And so, yeah, it's frustrating. But then again, we kind of have to watch it play out for now until, I think, though, watching the amount of diners that are opening in Anchorage, watching other people that are being non-compliant and deciding that, hey, no, we're standing up, I'm excited.
I am too. I mean, I'm all behind the Kreiner's Diner right now.
Yeah.
And Wings and Things and the few others that have openly defied the mayor's mandate that he has put into place. I find it disproportionate that the mayor chooses one diner out of the 4 or 5 that are currently open right now with that are not supposed to be, and chooses the Kreiner's Diner as being the one to place the lawsuit against. If these owners of these businesses and more owners in Alaska, they need to get a class action lawsuit and join into it as one big body against the state of Alaska, against Mayor Berkowitz and the city there, and stop this right in its tracks before it has a chance to get any further. Going one-on-one against Kreiner's Diner and the city, the law is stacked in the city's favor.
Yeah.
But if you've got 5 businesses going against the city, well, that's 5 against 1. You get 10 businesses, that's now 10 against 1. And if these people really do, you need to unite together. And
well, we know that there's always the safety. People always have that comfort in numbers. They know there's safety in numbers, or that mob mentality of, hey, he's doing it, I can do it too. And so we see it in that negative, but it also can be a positive thing. We see with some of the riots and some of the protests and stuff that people feel that, well, since there's this many people here, they can't arrest us all, or whatever their mentality is.
Well, there's a difference between
that's exactly what I'm saying, but there can be a positive peer pressure the other way, saying, hey, we have each other's backs, especially in the restaurant deal. We'll all help each other out, we'll all get a lawyer, we'll do class action, and that way it's not all the weight of the world on one person. It's all of us helping out and keeping it going, and then it's contagious. People, anytime you start standing for liberty, it becomes contagious. People realize that, I want that too. I have that. I feel what he feels. I feel it here. I feel it here. I want that too, and I'm willing to stand up. And then 2 turns into 4, 4 turns into 8, 8 turns into 30, 30 turns into 100, and it can be a good thing. It can.
It really can. Binding caucus.
Yes.
I'm going to bring us right back into that.
Please, that was a tangent.
Binding caucus, the illegal binding caucus, they control our legislation out there. We basically hand the power over to 10 people within our government that runs Juneau. Out of the 60 there, 10 of those people control the caucuses and their votes. When they go to Juneau, they immediately sign into this caucus to be a part of a group, so that, as David Wilson has put it here during one of the candidate forums, is so that he can be at the table and be able to feast, so that he's not off to the side getting just the scraps that gets thrown in his direction. He is more than willing to sign into the binding caucus. John Coghill, more than willing to sign into the binding caucus. Senator Kathy Giesel, more than willing. Bryce Edgman, more than willing. Senator Natasha von Inhofe, more than willing. Bert Stedman. I mean, I could go on and on and on. We have maybe 10 legislators out there that have not, since day one, signed in on this caucus. 10.
Right.
10 out of 60. 10 out of 60 that are not willing to give their yes vote on a bill that hasn't even been written yet.
Right.
These people that sign into the binding caucus say that I am going to give you a yes vote for start of the legislative session. Here we got the 32nd legislative section that will be starting when you go to Juneau this coming up January. You get into Juneau and they're going to say, we want you to sign this binding caucus. We're going to give you the front row parking space out front of the building. Your pick of which committees you want to be on. We're going to advocate for the bills that are your most closest to heart and make sure they get heard and maybe make it through the process. But you can vote on all of these things like our permanent fund dividend and all of this other stuff for a statutory PFD. You can go ahead and vote yes on that while they're in the amendment process, not the final bill, but the amendment process. You can vote any way you want.
Right.
But when the state and capital budget comes in and they've stripped out the statutory PFD, they strip out the stimulus like they did this last year back out of the bill. They take even more of the permanent fund dividend than what they had originally discussed to begin with, from the statutory down to $1,600 down to $1,000, and then when it finally comes out, $992.
They threatened $500 if they didn't vote a certain way too. So
we'll touch that here in just a second. So now but because you sign into this binding agreement, you can have all these things. Where do you stand on that?
Absolutely not. And one question, actually, when you talk about David Wilson, what is he planning on feasting? I mean, if he has no vote and no voice for his constituents, what's he feasting on?
The Medicaid. That is where his main stance is. I will make sure that we all have basically the Bernie Sanders plan of Medicaid, where everybody gets it and everybody gets it for free.
But again, that's what David Wilson gets.
Yes.
That's his stuff. How about his constituent stuff? This is the thing that makes me the most mad, is these legislators, well, I want a fair shake of the table. I want this, I want that. It's I, not we. You know, this is something I keep hitting home as I'm meeting people and I'm talking to people. This is not a job. Not at all. This is a duty. And it's one of my favorite things to do, whether it be at the borough, whether it be wherever I am, to remind politicians that they are public servants and watch their eyes roll and you watch your skin crawl. We have to remind them they work for us. You know, the fact that he's saying, I want to eat at the table, I want to feast at the table, that's the wrong kind of mentality already up the get-go. What about your constituents? So you're going to come for just your Medicare for one part of people, but what about all the other people that now don't have PFDs and now have out-of-control spending and yet still don't have KGB fixed, still don't have parts of the Glen fixed, Lake Louise Road, you name it. So you got your one bill. Good job, David. You know, I'm not apologetic to who I'll call out. I mean, if that's the case, I don't care. That's what we need right now in Juneau. We need unapologetically hardcore, patriot-minded, conservative, real conservatives down there to fight. It's still going to be an uphill battle. It still is. Like you said, we have 10 maybe right now.
10.
We might have a few nets coming in, more net gains. We might have a loss. We don't know yet.
Yeah, I got a list out there that's 40 people long. It's the 40 that I am pushing right now to get out of office because they have other people running against them.
Yeah.
There's 20 people that I don't list. The reason why I don't list them is because they're not the worst of the swamp that we have out there. But that's not saying a lot.
No, it's not.
It's only saying that if they had the other 40 right people in office, they might actually follow the laws.
Yeah.
That they follow the statutes that we have on the books. That's why they're not listed in my golden list that I have that I'm posting with a lot of posts nowadays. I've also changed my focus on my page. I am, as of today, and people that follow my page, they will see it. There's not a single thing that's on a national level listed on my page today. Nothing that's been shared, nothing from Trump, nothing from anybody else. If it's not local, it's not going to find my page until election season is over with from here on out, because I'm changing my focus. Because I just became aware of something that I'm sure you're very aware of. The Republican National Party of the National Party threw in $150,000 plus into the campaigns this year up here in Alaska. Did you see any of that money?
No.
Did your competitor George Rauscher see any of that money?
He saw about, I think, little under 16,000 of it.
16,000 of that $150,000.
So the funny part is, it's almost the money that I outraised him by. They funneled back into his coffers, and now we're seeing Washington D.C. money come in and impact elections here in Alaska.
Our local elections.
Yeah, talking this level. And the funny thing is that how many times are all of us so angry when the federal government tries to mess with our fisheries or our hunting or our land rights? Well, now we're watching it through the political scene that these are the lawmakers that will vote according to what the national levels or special interests want them to vote. Down to the point of taking, grassroots campaigns that have been completely funded locally and a lot of hard work and stuff, and pretty much just counter them with. But the nice thing, I will say this, and this is something that I like, is that I feel that they wouldn't put that kind of money into something if they weren't worried. I've had some little birdies tell me stuff about, little polls they've run and things like that. It's been interesting, and they can't tell me results because it'd be an independent expenditure and everything. They just said, hey, things are looking good, leaving it at that. And then to watch, two different PACs jump in, not against me, but supporting my opponent, kind of gives me the inkling that maybe things are looking a lot better than what I thought. I'm still pretty confident, but I'm not taking anything for granted on this. I need to still get out there as much as I possibly can, still work my butt off, let people know I'm working from, sun up to sundown. And that work ethic is...
Sitting here right now talking with me to make sure that more people out there get to hear the truth from you.
Yeah.
Because mainstream media, has any of the news organizations approached you? Has ADN come up and approached you, said, can we have an interview with you? We know you're running.
No.
The frontiersmen out here, have they come up to you and asked? Or?
No, actually, Josh Freifogel has reached out to me and said, hey, there's some free space on here for all the candidates. And he said he'd offer it to everyone. So, Josh is a good guy. The People's Paper is a great paper.
He followed, but...
And then KCAM, or KCAM radio up in Glen Allen, they did an interview and posted out. They play it, every other day or something like that. So
nice.
Yeah.
So you are 100% a grassroots campaign that's been running since day one.
Very much so. And I finally got some new signs too, because at first we had a little bit of funding deal between trying to get going. I'm actually the shortest. I have the coolest little statistic. I'm the shortest campaign out of anyone. I only had 21 minutes left to file my paperwork before the deadline. And so I'm one of the shortest campaigns, but my fundraising was strong. And it's not because I'm super good at fundraising. I'm really not. It makes me incredibly uncomfortable asking people for money, especially at a time of COVID where people have been laid off and people have been furloughed and people have, financial issues and things like that. It's just I have so many great people who believe in me and so many great people that reach out to their friends and their friends reach out to their friends. And I really can't take much more credit other than, just surrounding myself with really good people who I trust and who trust me as well. So I'm very blessed.
From what I've learned of you since day one, since the first rally that happened there at the Matsu Borough for the Second Amendment rights for the ordinance that they were trying to pass for gun ranges, you've been a man of your word. And that's something I take very, very strong. I appreciate that because I am a person that I always considered if I give a promise, I make a promise. My promise is my word. That's my bond.
Well, something I've taught my kid the most right now. My kid's 14. My son's 14, and he's had his behind spanked quite a few times when he wasn't quite being perfectly down the line truthful. And I said, our word means something as much as our family name means something. My last name means something to me. I'm proud of my last name. I'm proud of my father and my grandfather. And it's something that hopefully my son continues with. We're kind of old-fashioned. I still wear cowboy boots year-round, even in the snow up here. I don't care. That's my mentality. One of my biggest heroes is John Wayne. My boy's middle name is Wayne. And so, it's after my grandfather and after John Wayne, but it's kind of worked out perfectly that way. But no, my word is definitely something that means the most to me, because that's one of the things people can't take away from you.
Well, one of the reasons why I really wanted to bring that up, especially with you, is your competitor that you're running against, his word is not his bond. He's made a lot of empty promises over the years that this is what he'll do for the people of Alaska that he represents. But when he gets into Juneau, that's not necessarily how it happens out there. I mean, we got prime examples, and I'll just bring them up on my own. You can just sit here silently and nod if you want.
I got to drink some water. Hang on.
We got like SB 91 that was passed, who really did love that bill in the beginning, and who signed on to it. Makes a really telling tell out there. When it came to taking our permanent fund dividends for the very first time and turning it in being paid by tax revenue. A transfer from our ERA to now being paid by tax revenue. This happened in 2019 for the first time. 2020 being paid by tax revenue. And the telling vote is to look at the CBR vote.
Right.
Not the first vote they take on our budget, but the second vote.
Right.
And if you look over the last 5 years, 6 years of records of however long these people have been in office, that CBR vote is very, very telling.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because
it's a litmus test. It's a barometer.
Even the ones that I love, the legislators that didn't make my top 40, are guilty of voting yes on the CBR vote because they're told if they don't vote on it, and this is where I'm going to ask you to step back into the conversation here. if you don't vote for the CBR, this year, and I'm just going to bring this year into the picture because this is almost identical except for one item every single year. If you don't vote for the CBR vote, which requires 66% of our legislators to vote on it and vote yes, there will be no permanent fund dividend. This year we would have saw a $500 dividend instead of $1,000 or the $992 they gave us, because half of that was paid using tax money coming from the second part of the vote from the CBR's budget.
Right.
The CBR that they had $19 billion in when Governor Walker took office.
Right.
That has now only less than a little over $1 billion left inside of.
Right.
So you got the CBR vote that they now are paying part of our dividend with, the money that they say they don't have to pay the actual bill items that they have to pay for to run our government. For a statutory PFD that has always been a transfer from the earnings reserve account, the entire amount from the reserves account, to pay us our statutory formulated permanent fund. So now it's dependent on tax revenue from the CBR. So if you don't vote for that, you're only going to get a $500 PFD instead of the $1,000. Now they also put in the reverse sweep or the sweep. Those are accounts like the cost power equalization, the medical programs that they have out there to retain doctors to be able to stay in the state. Will pay your medical degrees and you stay here for so long.
A lot of buckets everywhere.
Yes. They have over $1 billion sitting in there in what I like to call slush funds. And just so you're aware, you can't use that word on the floor when you get to Juneau.
Is that a dare?
It is a part of their rules there that you are not allowed to call these things slush funds. Even though when they transfer that money over, the money that they actually need, and every year they got to pull from all of these accounts that this money is in and bring it back over into the general fund or into the CBR fund, whichever direction you want to go.
Right.
And this money is pulled out of all these accounts because it's in our Constitution they're supposed to do this. Then they reallocate this funding and they re-put it back into the accounts that they pull out there with all the increases that they want to do to specific ones like power cost of equalization. Now they put this part of the vote into the CBR, the one that they need 66% of the legislators to vote yes on. This is done so that if you vote no, these caucus binding legislators that are in control of things will publicly go out and say, see how little you care about Alaskans? You voted no for this. What they don't tell you is the money that they're sending back over in their accounts is somewhere between $1 billion to $2 billion more than what they actually have needed to actually pay these accounts to operate for the entire year.
Right.
So there's over $1 billion sitting there that they could be using to spend on the budget that they claim that they're short on every single year.
Right. And it keeps growing.
And it keeps growing.
And it keeps growing and growing and growing, and they keep saying we don't have any money, we don't have any money. There's two ultimate goals on here. They want to tax us, and they probably want to get their hands on the corpus. If they can burn through $18 billion in 5-6 years, that's a pretty big golden egg sitting there if they could actually facilitate that. And I think they're probably working their damnedest to figure out a way around the public vote to get around that. So, I mean, there could be some legal... You're good.
We're good, thank you.
They could be working some legal route. I mean, that's a lot of candidates, a lot of good people are talking about, our judicial system here, about having judges appointed by the bar and other stuff and not having them be voted in. We need people we can trust in the judicial part of the government as well that can safeguard irresponsible legislators that try to break the law.
Expand a little bit on that. I mean, our judges are appointed by a panel of those that are in the bar themselves.
Yes.
So Alaskans don't even get a final say in the matter other than our governor, which is also a part of the Recall Dunleavy's campaign. One of their 4 initiatives of why they're trying to recall him, because he didn't appoint one within a timely fashion.
Right.
Legally, they were supposed to present 2 people for every single open position. They only presented him with 3 people. Said, here, now he gets to pick 1. The other 2 were rejected because he didn't want them, and they didn't give him a couple more people to choose from.
Right.
And they said, oh, now you've broken the law because you haven't done this. But in reality, he hadn't broken any laws. It's just their feelings. So we got a bar association that appoints these lifelong judges, that when it comes time for retention, that's when Alaskans finally get to vote on them. In all of our 60-some years that we've been around here in Alaska, over 75 years now, that we've been a state, we've only had 1 judge ever be recalled. And that was just this last past election cycle when they did it, because he followed the law and didn't rewrite legislation on the bench that the far left wanted to have him rewrite.
Yep.
And so they got him removed for it. Same thing that we're seeing like they tried to do with Kavanaugh and all these other people that are out there. If they don't like that you're going to follow the law and not write your own laws from the bench, you're not a good judge. We don't want you because you don't follow the agenda we have.
Well, I think the big key too is people need to realize that Alaska is, the richest state in the union. We really are.
We are.
And just because we're, a couple thousand miles north from most people, if not farther, doesn't mean people's eyes are not on us. Doesn't mean that that's another one of those golden eggs that people want to get their hands on and infiltrate, whether it be the legislature, the judicial system. I mean, it doesn't matter what they want to infiltrate, they will.
Anwar is a good example.
Anwar is a perfect example.
I mean, we were going from a 90-10 split, which has been in our Constitution. We became the 49th state. That was the agreement that we had with our federal government. 90% stays here, they get 10%. Anwar, completely different story. Under Trump, they got it opened up, but our split went to 50-50.
Yep.
And oh, by the way, are you aware that the dividend or the share program that is set up for our permanent fund dividend does not apply to Anwar? So all the oil revenue that is generated out of Anwar, there will be nothing being added into our permanent fund dividends ERA for revenue that comes from that area. It is strictly between the state and our federal government.
Well, give the state back all that money on that part of it, then we get to keep all the corpus of the PFD, and we have a lot bigger PFDs then.
That's the way, yeah.
It's simple. It's simple. I mean, it's the problem is the media.
But they get a smaller piece of the pie now because of that too.
Yeah. Well, most of the media likes to portray it. It's always the roof's on fire. When we talk about education, whatever we talk about, if you cut this, we're going to fire all the teachers. We have to lay them all off, and your kids won't be schooled. Well, with COVID, we see up to 25%, even higher, students staying home this year.
Yes.
But yet we're all paying the same amount, and they all expect the same salary, and they're only teaching 1 or 2 days a week.
4 hours from what they had just written up for the ASD school district. They are required to do 4 hours of education a week with the students that are
with
learning
full salary.
With full salary
and full bennies.
Yes.
If my wife worked 4 hours a week, or if I worked 4 hours a week, you think I get benefits? You think I get my full salary?
I guarantee, nope.
No, and I feel for teachers. The problem is a lot of teachers aren't paid very much. A lot of administrators are paid a whole ton. And that's another problem in this state, is we're way top heavy. And I know other people have said it, we're top heavy administrative. Well, it's an easy fix in my mind. We need separate budgets. We need an administrative budget, and we need an operating budget for schools. And that way, superintendents and stuff, they get X amount of money per year, and they have to figure out how many superintendents they want per school and district. So instead of having, 3 superintendents over 15 schools, like some places around here, you get 1. You may have some cheaper staff that goes in there and offers some more blue-collar jobs. Cool. But the fact that we're, the one big budget and they decide how much, 44% right now for administrative cost.
Yes.
And then not only that, but we start looking into NEA. I think it's NEA, correct?
NEA Alaska,
yeah. Yeah, NEA Alaska is, I was doing some number crunching with someone I trust pretty close, and she was saying that $600 million of that budget goes towards that healthcare. Now, if there's definitely different programs they could be using for their healthcare, which offer better coverage at a fraction of the cost.
Well, I'll throw one in there because with our healthcare, when it comes to the school teachers and the school districts that are out there, they are independently financing their school district. So we got 54 school districts out there. We've got 54 different healthcare programs that they are utilizing. They're not utilizing just one, taking all of their bargaining power as one big conglomerate group.
Right.
They're individually dividing it between all 54 districts. Some of them, yes, they have joined together so that they're under one bigger umbrella. But the bottom line to it is you've got this many districts, they should all be as one big group.
Well, yeah, you get a lot better discount. Yeah. A lot better discount and better coverages.
I know at a corporate rate, when it comes to healthcare, it's pennies on the dollar in comparison to what you pay as an individual or as just a 10-person group versus 100 people.
Well, this woman who works for the administration said we could save up to $400 million a year. We cut it from $600 million down to $200 million by incorporating the healthcare and giving better healthcare and better plans and better benefits.
So 1.6 or $1.3 billion that we're spending right now on K through 12 and early education, we could cut their budget by $400 million basically right now just by consolidating them all into one giant healthcare program.
And they'd have better coverage.
So I would throw out there it would be $200 million to $400 million savings just by going under one umbrella.
That'd be a safe deal, yeah.
Yeah, so $200 million right off the top, up to $400 million. So we go from $1.3 billion to $1.1 billion at a minimum.
Yeah.
Just by consolidating their health care and our legislators. Oh man, this is so sad. So 60 of our legislators, and I'm going to say 60 because as for hearing anybody out there vocal about this. How many of them have actually pointed out this very simple fallacy when it comes to them claiming they can't cut our costs there?
There's a few. I mean, there's a few warriors there right now. And the thing about it is I imagine it's hard. I mean, I'm speaking out of ignorance right now. I've not been there. I don't know. I can tell everyone, and a lot of people can tell you what they want to do. I know what I will stand by because I'm a man of my word, but I don't know what kind of battle it is there. I've never been there, and to assume that I do know what it's about, I'm foolish to say so.
Well, let me throw one at you right now. Is they're going to say to you, and I know this is going to happen because I've heard my own personal legislator tell me this to my face. We are constitutionally required to provide the $1.3 billion that we have right now to them because we are required to provide an education.
We are required, by the Constitution, we are required to provide education. There is no dollar amount set on that. And to use that is a half-truth. It's just a way to say we have to do this, to justify their fiscal irresponsibilities. It's that simple. We're spending, on the average, some places 17, some places 20, some places 13, about $15,000 per student right now in this state.
Yes.
Which is, 5,000 above, or 6,000 above the national average. National average, I think, is 9,500 to 10,000, somewhere around there.
Yes.
So, why? Now you start hearing all the excuses, all the well thought out little talking points and wag the dogs.
Because our health care costs.
Because our health care costs so much, or because we had to put a school way out in the middle of nowhere, or we had to do this, we had to do that. Well, yeah, I get putting a school out in the middle of nowhere, but not a freaking Taj Mahal.
We got a place in Alaska, $139,000 per student for 6 kids.
Yep.
Enough to send them to college for 4 years.
Harvard.
Yes, Harvard.
Yale, yeah. Actually, I would love to move up there and say, you give me the money, my kid's going to come out like, he's going to be squared away. He's going to be a little prodigy.
I mean, you would think that these are the top-ranked students of the state, too. That these 6 kids would be the elite of the elite, that their education far out surpasses anything that we're seeing anywhere else in the state for this kind of money. But they're not required to report. We have no idea, and I've looked into it.
Yeah.
I have no idea what their scholastic scores are coming from this school. It's completely blank. They're not required because of the way they are structured to report anything other than that these people's butts are in the seat.
Yeah. We're not performance-based in schools anymore. Common Core definitely helped out with that. And I've talked with other people, especially when it comes to schools. I'm excited. My kids this year are homeschooling. They are. I'm not going to go through the rigmarole that like it was last year. Hey, they're going to be in school. Oh, no, they're not. Hey, they're going to do half the time. Oh, well, we don't know yet. No, my kids need stability. I need stability with me working and my wife working. Luckily, my children are older. I have 18 and 14-year-old. So, it's just, yeah. And then speaking with other people that have homeschooled, we're actually using the Raven program.
Okay.
Very excited about it. Met with some of the people there. I'm stoked because a lot of the time you can cross enroll into the college there. So my daughter, who's finishing up her senior year of high school, will end up with college credits on top of her high school diploma and put her that much further ahead of life instead of being stifled or held back to keep everyone at the same level. And so I think people are waking up to that too. And I'm not saying everyone can homeschool. It's a hard thing. It really is. I mean, it's hard because you spend part of your day chewing your kid's butt about getting their homework done, and then you get to spend the other part of the day chewing their butt about getting their chores done, and 90% of your day is spent chewing your kids' butt. It's not a fun time. It's not a happy household, and so it's definitely hard to do. But I truly believe that as we go forth, we see there are other alternatives, and the other alternatives to keep a lot of our kids safe from maybe influences we don't want. Whether it be liberal agendas that they're trying to push on our kids. I mean, a funny story about my son, he got in trouble one time at school for doing too many pull-ups. I'm not kidding. He was making other kids feel bad because he's cranking out too many pull-ups. And so they made him stop.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's doing things like that. So, there is...
I'm seeing it myself with my own child. Virtual classrooms is how she chose to go this year. She did the research. She put together a very comprehensive report that was put into a binder that had stats and statistics for different schools around Alaska, plus other virtual programs that the state was providing, including the one that Governor Dunleavy had gotten from out of Florida and compared their stats to this school. The one that Governor Dunleavy did slightly better than the one that she decided to choose to go to, but she wanted to keep it local. She didn't want to go with one that was out of state, which, in my opinion, that's her right to do. She's a straight A student, so nice. It's when it comes to what she wants to do, I want my child to be empowered in the choices that she is making to what direction she wants to go in her life.
Well, successful and happy.
Yes.
A lot of times we focus on the success part and our children are miserable. Or sometimes we focus too much on the happy part and our children are not successful. So it's that fine line. I mean, it's always hard being a parent. It's always, am I being too hard on them? Am I being too soft on them? Am I doing the right thing? Do I give them the right medicine? Do I do this? Do I feed them the right food?
The tough love of today.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah, and everyone has an opinion. Man, we're an opinionated society nowadays. Everyone's going to tell you how you're either parenting wrong or right, or, it's just like everything in life. We just have so much input in our worlds, between our cell phones, between our Netflix, between our constant barrage on our smartphones and smartwatches and this and that and everything, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're inundated. We need to get back to simplicity, and we should require simplicity and require honesty in things like government. It doesn't need to be every answer a long, drawn out hodgepodge of dodging actually committing to anything, so that way I can't be held accountable for anything. And so if we get back to being simple and saying, Yes, I will do this. No, I won't do this. And I don't have to think about it. I don't have to preface it or put precondition on things.
Or give the politician answer
Yes.
no answer.
No answer, yes.
I mean, we saw that very clearly. I posted a video last night of a candidate forum with David Wilson in it. And him giving a constituent asked him point blank, I want a yes or no. Will you be in a binding caucus? Yes or no. He gave the politician of answer of no answer, saying, look at my voting record. Look at my voting record. Look at how many times I voted yes. But these were for amendments. These were things that were going to be stuck inside of the bill itself.
Right.
When the final bill got out and everything that he even voted yes for had been stripped away again, did he vote no because they are all stripped away? No, hell no. He voted yes.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's a politician that is not looking out for our best interests. And I know for a fact you go to Juneau, you vote for these amendments to be in this bill and they get stripped out at the very end, I can guarantee you're not going to be a yes vote because that stuff is no longer there.
Right.
And that's what they're afraid of. That's the reason why the Republican National Committee has thrown $150,000 into these people's campaigns. George Rouser, $16,000, or Senator Coghill, another $15,000 there. They're scared of Robert Meyer at the moment.
24,000 for someone else, 20,000 for something. Yeah, it was all doled up, and the thing about it is
it's all the races that are with people that have
strong stances on the binding caucus, strong stances on fiscal responsibility, and the other people are kind of just yes men.
Yes.
And kind of more like we'll go along to get along, and that's something we can't do anymore. We cannot stand, and I'm not saying be combative. There's a difference between being firm and being firm in your stances and vigilant in your constituents' votes and doing what's right by the people of your district, between being that and combative. You don't always have to go to war, but you have to be vigilant. You have to keep an eye on those amendments. You have to keep an eye on those sneaky things that all it takes is one or two words. Words are very important, as we saw with
shall, may, appropriate,
SB 26, yes, appropriate, yeah. And so we have to be careful. We need someone who's going to be there all the time and who's going to have their ears and their eyes on all the time. And not only that, but have their ears and eyes on at home and make those channels of communication. Have these videos. I mean, Mike Shower and Shelley Hughes do amazing about that.
Yeah.
They're always on there just, hey guys, here's what's going on.
They're constantly hammering every week while they're in Juneau, even before they get to Juneau.
Shelley's kind of more like that, really nice, like your mom. Like, she's just nice, and you almost want to have some tea with her or some coffee.
Yes.
Well, I don't drink tea, but coffee. Have a coffee with Shelley, have a good time, everything like that. And then you have, Mike Shower, who has his whiteboard, and he's put his strategic, pragmatic plans on everything. And between the two of them, we get a better idea of what's going on in Juneau because, although we voted for it twice, it's not in Willow. Yeah. So, I think that's a big part of being a representative of the people is also keeping them informed. We saw it with when they tried to, my 907 Freedom got involved with that black bear hunting ban they want to do for residents only because of COVID.
Right.
They wanted to ban you from hunting black bears in the spring for COVID, even though you're out in the middle of the woods and you're not seeing anybody. But for some reason, that was scary for, the powers that be that we're all going to hunt. And so, I had a few people calling me up, telling me about it. We put it out there, and within a matter of hours, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of phone calls flooded that place, and they reversed it the next day. It was awesome. That's what I want to see here. That's what I want to see is the power of the people taken back. Get your call list. Get your email list. Be the guy who informs of the actual backdoor stuff that's happening. Let people know, hey, it looks like in 2 to 3 weeks this is coming down the line. Get your facts straight. Get your people together. We need to attack this at the head. And not after the second vote's gone through and say, oh, well, guys, looks like something passed. And everyone becomes reactionaries and, ready to grab their pitchforks and torches or their, put on their body armor and their AR-15s and go protest. Well, yeah, if you would have stood up, 3 weeks ahead of time, it would have been a lot easier and a lot less time and money and effort to do so. And so I think that's pivotal of a good representative is to be in constant contact with his constituents, whether it be on Facebook, whether it be on email, whether it be making videos. That way people just want their time can take it and read it. Mailers, get mail out there. Little handwritten letters and mail them out. Or send them to people that can copy them and they email them out. It's easy to do. I've seen it with a lot of my 907 Freedom stuff. It's not hard to get 10,000 views in a matter of 24 hours. It's really not, if you take the time and tell people, hey, if your friend's not on Facebook, email them this, please. And you mobilize the masses. And that's what you're seeing happen in Anchorage. It's infantile, small right now, but it will get bigger. It's the same thing. We need to take that back here at the district level, at the precinct level, because we see corruption at every level, and we see people being stifled at every level. Whether it be precinct, city, district, region, state, it doesn't matter. Power corrupts. It's just what happens. But when we see that, we need to root it out, and we need to get good people in there who want to serve their state.
The key word there, serve.
Serve.
You are a servant.
Yes.
Not a dictator.
Negative.
Because that's what we're seeing right now coming out of Juneau. We're seeing it with Mayor Berkowitz. They're dictating to us what they're going to do. They don't care what we, the people who are you, the servant, listening, they're supposed to be listening to. They're dictating to us, the people that they're supposed to be listening to, this is what we're going to do. We don't care what you say.
Well, partly that's our fault. That's a hard pill we have to swallow. With voter turnout the way it is, with people not being involved, part of that is us resigning ourselves to the fate that you lie in the bed you make. Yep. And I've been guilty of it. I've lived here since 2016. I lived in Eagle River for for a year, and we moved up here because I didn't move to Alaska for 0 lot lines. Eagle River was nice, but
you just brought up a good subject here. You've been here since 2016.
Yeah.
I'm hearing it through the grapevine, and I know you're hearing it directly. Well, you're not really Alaskan. You haven't lived up here your whole life. I've been here my whole life.
Oh, yes.
And that makes me superior to you.
Yep.
I'm a sourdough. You're a chichaco. I mean, to bring back the old words, which probably nowadays is considered racist, because I call you a chichaco. But you moved to Alaska for a reason. The same reason that my family, before I was even born, moved to Alaska. They moved to Alaska because we're considered the last frontier. We're the land of opportunity. We're the one place in the out of the United States that hasn't been completely corrupted by the lower 48 mentality of control, take away your rights, more control, more rights taken away, more control. And we were the last stronghold that was holding out. But since you've been here, what's your opinion about Alaska? I mean, be honest here, because you're rallied against it all the time.
Yeah, no, that's fine. No, I should have researched a little bit more. I'll say that. I was expecting red as red can be. I was expecting like Wyoming red.
Okay.
I was expecting 83% turnout for Trump in the last election, or whatever it may be, and. It was at when we moved up here, it was at a really difficult point in my life. It was finally after my injury. I had a really traumatic injury at work. I used to be a foreman for Siemens. I put all the bomb detection systems in the airports around the U.S. and conveyor systems and stuff like that, and really loved my life, loved my job, made great money. Things were good until I got my leg crushed. And it was rough. It was a lot of really rough years of a lot of pain and spinal block injections and therapies, and it was rough on the family, man. It was not a joke. And then to take that and with workers' comp, they cap it. Where I got hurt at Los Angeles Airport is where we were working. We were supposed to finish Los Angeles, go to Oakland, and go to Dallas Fort Worth. I was hoping to actually come up here because they had an Anchorage job doing some of the work up here as well, but I wasn't put on that team. The workers' comp got cut off and then turned back on, cut off, turned back on. We were down to, just my wife's income, and it was a really hard time in our lives, but we learned how to be a lot more fiscally responsible. Instead of going from 2 salaries, we went to 1, and learning how to live within our means, because before we had pretty disposable income. I made a lot of money.
So I'll put this very simply. You just described to me about living within your means.
Yeah.
For the income that you have versus the income that you want or did have.
Yeah. So no, I definitely have personal experience as far as not spending more than you have.
So then going to Juneau, that's a perfect experience to have, isn't it?
Yeah. But then we finally, after 7 long years, we finally got our settlement. And then it was, where do we go from here? or at that time we were living in Oregon, and I've been fighting for the fight, especially for liberty and freedom in Oregon for a very long time, for gun rights and property rights and other things like that. I was involved with many different groups that were constantly battling the local and state governments to just try to keep on the last little grips of what we had left. And then you saw Antifa infiltrated about 8 years ago, slowly in Oregon, and just been the past 5-6 years that they're really kind of getting hot and heavy. 3 years especially now.
And this last year.
Yeah, last year is on fire.
The worst, yes.
But it was time to leave. It was time to get out of Oregon. We had, it was time just to have a fresh start. And so we put our resume, or my wife put her resume in for Wyoming, Northern Arizona by the White Mountains, and Alaska. And Alaska said, "How soon can you be up here?" After 4 hours. And they offered a pretty nice sign-on bonus. They offered stuff like that. We had a large settlement for my leg, and it was like, let's just go. I've always dreamed of living up here. I've read Fred Burr's books. I'm a big bow hunter. I've been bow hunting for 25 years, more than 25 years. It's fishing. I love fishing, and it's always been a dream to be up here. And it's something I wanted to give my kids. I wanted them to see that.
So you came to Alaska for the same reason why my parents came up.
It was refuge. It was not only, it wasn't refuge because we were in trouble. It was refuge for our soul. It really was. It was one of those places I wanted to come and start anew and have my kids enjoy all the things I enjoyed about other places when I was younger that had flipped since. And so when we got here, it was like, okay, this is not quite what we want, but it's doable. And so then we moved from Eagle River to Hatcher's Pass up by Fish Hook area, and started the gun store, got that rolling, had a few other projects in the fire as well. And then when the shooting range ban for the borough started coming through, my wife looked at me and she goes, "You're doing it again, aren't you?" And I was like, "Yeah." I said, "Are you mad?" She goes, "No, it's why I love you." And she said, "You're a guy who stands for what you believe, and you're not going to let someone take your rights." And so
that's when I met you for the first time.
And that's when you met me for the first time. And so we started 907 Freedom, and it started to take off very, very quick off one video. And then I made 2 videos, and I made 10 videos, and upper end of 3,000 followers now. And people see that when I say I'll be somewhere, I'll be there. When they say I'm telling them numbers that'll be there, it's pretty close to numbers that are going to be there. And people appreciate that, I'm unrelenting when it comes to our firearm rights and property rights and anything, even our First Amendment rights. I'm all for that as well. I think that one adage I live my life by is if the Constitution does not apply to all, it applies to none.
Well, you've seen something here recently, and I'm going to kind of segue just slightly away from that. We both utilize Facebook enormously for a lot of the campaigning stuff that we're doing out there to get the message out to Alaskans.
Yeah.
For the last 3 years, I'm in my 4th year now of reporting on Alaska politics, and right at about a month before election season starts, I find my reach to my followers out there gets cut by over a third.
Yeah.
I went from, like, in a video that we're doing right now, I would have 50 people watching this video as we are live streaming it right now. I'll be surprised if they have 10 people watching it right now, because Facebook didn't propagate this to my followers, my 3,000 followers out there.
Right.
They didn't get a notification that I was live with you right now.
Right.
I maybe 50 people got a notification that I was live out of all those people that are following my page. This video, when they get shared this video, normally when a person would share a video like this, they would go and their friends would get a notification that they shared this video. But Facebook is restricting those kind of things from happening. They'll share it, and instead of their friends getting a notification, they don't get one at all.
Well, I have to actually have things mailed to me now. My 907 made a lot of people mad when it came to the gun stuff. I had a lot of anti-gun stuff and everything like that. That now every time I want to boost a post, they have to mail me a code to make sure it's me, even though they've mailed me probably 5 codes, I think. And they know it's me, and they know my address and everything like that. But yeah, now every time I want to boost anything or do anything at all, I have to mail myself a code. They do anything they can to stifle you and to shut you down. And so, I've had enough complaints from here, there, and everywhere where Facebook's kind of a pain in the butt for me now.
It is. It is. I mean, it really is frustrating, because I will go for, I did a school board meeting here the other day, and I had a whole 3 people come in and join in on that live feed for that school board meeting. but the same school board that I did a live stream for, that was the week before they went on to spring break, I had 20,000 people watch that video. During the live feed, I had 100 plus people on the live feed itself, and I was just watching those numbers jump between 200 down to 100 to 200 back down to 100 to doing this live feed to having 3 people to 10 people was my max numbers that I saw during that same feed.
No, they'll throttle you down if you're not with what they're trying to push. They'll throttle you down.
Yeah, I'm too effective. That's when you start to make an impact out there. And so how do we? I mean, I know you've got several suggestions out there, and the reason why I'm asking you is I want the audience to realize what we need to be doing to combat this.
Well, the biggest thing is to be proactive also in your Facebook. That even if they're just throttling it down to where it's only your friends instead of your friends of your friends, or however they can shut you down, just start sharing things. Don't be afraid to be out there and say, I shared this. I agree with this. And a lot of people, we saw it with the Trump election, or at least they said that was the reason with the Trump election that Trump won, is because people were afraid to voice their opinion that they were going to vote for him because they didn't want to be deemed as racist or whatever it was, or sexist, or whatever ist they want to tag on you for that moment. Help out, share, get it out there, get the information out there, be unapologetic about your views or your beliefs or what you want to stand for. This truly is a time to stand. This truly is a time to fight. And I think, I am worried. I'll be honest. I do have some fears. I'm not have a perfect faith. I have fears, especially for this area I believe come in October. I think that financially we're going to see a lot of things come, and I think that some of our channels of communication are going to have to be open. We watch people like Donna Anthony with the Santa Cop thing, with how many people she fed with her program and kept people helped during the first initial COVID deal when groceries were short and toilet paper was short and everything like that. We need those channels of communication open as community. We need to be a community. We need to know who's hurting without them asking.
Right.
We need to go back to not being isolationists. We need to know how our neighbors are doing. I just found out my neighbors are moving. Great older couple. I mean, between the two of them, I think they have 60 years in the FBI together. They're just a phenomenal group. But now, they're getting a little older, and it's time for them to get out of the big house and head to somewhere a little bit smaller. And it breaks my heart because now I got to meet new people, and sometimes I'm not always the greatest at that. And so, be neighbors again. Be a community again. Find out who your neighbors truly are. Know if they're struggling, or know if there's something that you can help out with without having to be asked. That's something that used to be what this country was based on, is people would help each other out, and that the government never felt the need for all these programs to help people out because communities help communities.
I got to throw LBJ into the under the bus here because if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be having the welfare programs that we are seeing today.
Right.
30 years of Democratic control, and then they always want to throw in, well, that's when the Southern Switch happened right after that.
Oh, of course.
And Republicans became that party, and we became the opposite. Well, I'm going to throw the switch out there just because at that point, that's when Republicans got smart, realized that the socialist programs that they were instilling upon us were going to tear our country apart as they grew bigger and bigger, as government began to grow bigger and larger. The monsters that they're feeding in the swamp of the money that they're taking from us to give to them is only going to grow. To get 80% going to the swamp and 20% or less getting out to the public.
Yeah.
Alaska here is a prime example of that. We've got nonprofit organizations that 80% or for every dollar spent, 80 cents is going to their administration and their employees, and 20% is making it to the public out there. Sharon Jackson, during her candidate forum, she says, and she brings this up all the time, her one bill that she wants to get passed is that it will become a statutory law that all nonprofits, 20% of the income that they get from the state is utilized for their internal administration and staff. The other 80% is to be used out in the public that it's supposed to be helping. and that's a bill she wants to get passed.
Outstanding.
Where do you stand on this?
Actually, Sharon was a little bit more conservative than I was. I was saying 30%.
Okay.
So good on you, Sharon. I'm proud of that. That's awesome. Yeah. I was saying 30% for operating costs, 70% for. But if she wants to do 20, I'll double down, and I'll be all about 20%. So yeah, I think that nonprofits are a very slippery slope, and we have so many, up to 7,400, I think, in the state. Last time I had heard.
Well, I always throw out 8,000 is the number that I get.
8,000.
Yeah.
And I think it's like almost 5,000 are funded right now. I'm not positive on that number. I think it was like 4,800, somewhere around there. 5,000 were funded right now with some form of state aid or state funding.
Or federal.
Federal.
Yeah.
And so, the problem with nonprofits is they're incredibly tempting again. There's so many things to be taken advantage of by unscrupulous people. And so, when you look at a nonprofit, it's basically a tax haven where we just trust you in all benevolent causes to do what you're supposed to do.
Well, on a national level, I'll throw out the Clinton Foundation as
right.
one of those. On a more local level, I'm going to say the Rasmussen Foundation.
Right.
Who just so happens Senator Natasha von Imhoff's family runs and owned, and she's also a member of the Finance Committee on the Rasmussen
And they're
Foundation.
getting quite a bit of CARES money, aren't they?
Yeah, they received the lion's share of the COVID CARES Act money. The Senator Natasha von Imhoff made sure a good chunk of our state and capital budget went to this year. And then Mayor Berkowitz and his assembly there, that $22.5 million that they're trying to use of the CARES Act money, a good portion of that money, the $100 million that they completely set aside for this project, good portion of that all goes to the Rasmussen Foundation.
Yeah.
They currently spend $10 million a year on the homeless program in Anchorage. These 4 buildings and the staffing and everything else that's going to require is going to be an additional $7 million a year, so they'll be spending $17 million a year.
How many beds, do you remember?
If I go by what the mayor said on K-Well the other day, 125 beds.
No, I'm hearing a way different story. I'm hearing a lot less than that.
Well, that was between all 4
okay,
buildings.
Okay, yeah.
This is just not in one place.
Now I'm tracking. Okay.
125 beds for 1,200 people, but $7 million cost.
Yeah, no, the thing about nonprofits is a lot of them are good. There are some who are really, really good, who have people there who have passion, who have that sense of duty to their fellow man. And those people are some of the most amazing people on this planet, because most of them do it they donate their time.
Yes.
I know one woman here who makes the quilts for the vets, who does it strictly on her time, pays for her own fabric. I mean, they are amazing. This woman, I know, you look at Alaska Healing Hearts. You look at a lot of people here who truly do it for the right cause. Now, there's a flip side to that. There's people who do it because they know there's a lot of money to be made in that world. And the only thing too is nonprofits have a slippery slope of, you don't want to solve the problem that you're professing to want to address, because you'll work yourself out of a job.
Yeah.
And so, we watch it with the homeless programs and stuff. They don't help. They do enough to make them comfortable enough to stay alive, but they don't do anything to benefit their lives. Very rarely do they do it. Because, why work yourself out of a job? Why work it out of something that 60, 70, 80% operating costs all goes to people sitting at a nice fancy table talking about the plight of the world as they all drive home in their Mercedes and Audis and Beamers and Land Rovers,
so they can go home and then go out to their
and pat themselves on the back and say, "Look at me, I'm doing my good deal for my fellow man." And so,
as they're eating their caviar and sipping their champagne.
Yes. So as long as we tell the truth, and I think Sharon Jackson has a great idea with 20%. Like I said, I feel kind of foolish now for saying 30. No, I think if we went to 20% to be able to qualify for state funds, you have to be audited. You have to say that, hey, only 20% went to operating costs and the other 80%, 80 cents on the dollar goes towards the cause. Sure, we'll go ahead and fund you, because then we see the bang for our buck.
Yes.
Then we see an accountability of our taxpayer dollars and where it's going. And so that makes sense. That makes sense to me. That would be almost a necessity if we want to rein in some of the spending in the state.
Well, we got we've got 3 plans that have been offered for the homeless programs that are going on in Anchorage. We got Mayor Berkowitz's plan. We've got the other one that Baggage is offering out there. And then we've got another one that's called the Juneau plan. The only difference between
that one scares me the most.
The Juneau plan?
Yeah, it says Juneau.
Well, would it surprise you that they've had a 95% success rate with the plan?
Really?
When they instilled it in Juneau.
Wow.
The only difference between the baggage plan and the Juneau plan is incarceration rates. The baggage plan is much more stiff, and they want to incarcerate a lot more people than the Juneau plan does. That is the only difference between the two plans. Other than that, they're pretty identical to each other. Compared to the Anchortown plan that the Berkowitz and Assembly has out there, using the same organizations that they're using right now, the same plan that they're using right now, the same organizations that are providing all of the care to these people, just expanding the number of buildings that they get to do it in.
Right.
So, which has approximately a 5% success rate. Point out right now, 95% success rate in the Juneau plan where it was done in Juneau. 5% success rate for what they're currently doing at the moment that they want to replicate. So you can kind of see the problem with that. So the Juneau plan is what you're describing. It is taking all of these organizations, these nonprofits, and turning them into one lean, mean operating machine.
Perfect.
Making that 20% operating cost a stick. And here's the stick we're going to beat you with. Every time you try to go over that 20%, we're going to pull out that stick and we're going to beat you back down.
Perfect.
Because that's not what this is all about.
Nope.
We're not here to grow you. We're here to grow the help that's going out to the people out there.
We're here to solve a problem.
So what they did, and what they did in Juneau is they formed a task force that was nothing more than a group of social workers and police officers joining together and going and knocking on these tent walls. They go and set up a tent today. Tomorrow they got a social worker and a police officer standing at their tent telling them they need to move. The social worker is there to provide them any help that they need to be able to maybe get them the help to get them off of the streets.
Right.
The police officer is there to enforce that if you don't move, we're incarcerating you and we're throwing you in jail. Now, their way this was working was, and they knew who wanted help and who didn't want help, because the one that wanted help, they would lean over to the social worker and say, hey, I've got this friend, but I have no way to get there. Could you give me a ride to their house? And the social worker would say, sure, no problem. Here, come on, hop into my vehicle. The one who didn't want help would walk 10 feet down the road from where they were just accosted at, reset up their camp again, pull out the needles that they had before and start shooting themselves back up on the side of the street. It was obvious they didn't want help. This is when the police officer steps in and they were incarcerated.
Right.
95% success rate. The 20% that they were using went into programs to help get them taken care of.
Yeah, drug programs or, training, job training or
something to
that effect.
They did set them up a homeless camp too that had busing service.
Really?
Yes. It was set up in a remote area where they didn't have easy access to liquor stores, didn't have easy access to the drug dealers and everything else. They had a bus service that was provided to and from to this homeless camp that they set up, and they would bus them back and forth on a daily basis so that they were not stuck there.
Right.
They could come back into the city, go do their panhandling or whatever they felt like they needed to have to do, but they were no longer living in the streets inside the heart of these communities that they were in. This is a plan that mayor was given. He ignores.
Of course.
It doesn't exist. This plan doesn't exist. So you've got yourself the power of the purse strings when you go to Juneau. That allows state money to be contributed onto the city's money to help out these different programs and plans. There's a lot of steps you yourself that can be done to help out these organizations to help turn them into lean, mean, organized machines that is doing the maximum benefits of the help that's out there, but it's going to take someone that's not a part of the binding caucus.
Yeah.
Someone that's not going to be a yes vote when this stuff gets stripped back out to make those kind of things happen.
Right.
Moving on, or unless you got more to add on to
it takes someone who can stand up, because a lot of these topics are touch and go. A lot of these topics are really touchy for certain people. I mean, there's certain things you're not supposed to talk about in politics, whether it be schools, whether it be Alaska Natives, whether it be a lot of stuff. And the problem is we choose not to talk about these things the problem just gets kicked down the road further and further. Can gets kicked down the road further, and the problems compound. We can talk about these things as long as we're, are respectful and pragmatic and get everyone to tell the truth and get everyone to say, this is what needs to be done. This is what we should be doing to help or to cut or to do whatever we need to do the best benefit for everyone involved. And the thing about it is so many politicians, and I make that big difference between politician and statesman. There's a huge difference between the two. A statesman is someone who says, I will be a public servant. I am your servant. A politician says, you all are mine. And so, the key is getting people who are not polished or preen or say the right things or have a handler at their side all times whispering things, oh, don't say that, or oh, you better say that, or don't give those answers as you were talking about, the answer of not answering. That we need people who are real. We need people who will be accountable, people what they say. And that's part of it. If you want to get something done, sometimes you got to put your neck out on the block. And you got to say, I will champion this. And it's like what Mike Shower's done, Senator Shower's done. He doesn't have a lot of fun dealing with his binding caucus. I can only imagine the amount of phone calls he gets and the static he gets and the constant berating from leadership and everything like that. But it's something he believes in passionately. It's something he is willing to fight for because he knows it's right. It's right to stand against this. It's right to get rid of it. It's right to give the votes back to the people. It's the same thing with whether it be gun rights or same thing whether it be right to life. Same thing whether it be whatever it may be is we no longer abide by our party platform, especially as Republicans, and it is the most frustrating thing for me to watch. We make excuses for our legislators. We make excuses for everyone involved. That was only sort of a pro-life bill, and oh look, I'm grandstanding. I am pro-lifer. Oh, I am pro-Second Amendment, and yet he or she has never shot a gun or rarely ever does. But when the NRA's there, or if GOA's there, or whatever else like that, they're always the first one with a gun in their hand. Oh, look at me!
I gotta. You remind me of a post that I share a lot. The Swenson family's blog. They came out with this thing about Senator Kathy Giessel and all of her lies, and their prime picture that they show is Senator Kathy Giessel sitting there holding a gun.
Is that the one at the range? She's at the range or something?
She's at the range, and her finger is on the trigger.
I know.
I mean, it blows me away how many times I've shared that, and a new person will discover, wow, she's got her finger on the trigger for that photo, and it was a photo op. This wasn't something of her just getting ready to go shoot the gun. She was taking a photo op when she took this picture.
Well, I look at a lot of my Second Amendment rally. We had so many people there. We had a ton of people there.
Oh, about 90% of the people there was armed. I mean, packing while they were there.
Well, not only that, but I looked at who showed up. That was a real deciding factor of as I got more and more involved in the political scene here in Alaska, is who showed up.
Which legislators did, which
assembly
members did.
Oh, yeah, which ones didn't.
Yes.
That was the other key. These are the people who say, oh, I have an A+ rating on my NRA, but yet they didn't show up, when about 6 others did. There's a lot of people who did show up because they realized this movement was going to be big. And most of them showed up for the right things. They wanted to talk to people. They wanted to take this to Juneau. They wanted to talk about this and see how we can combat it legally.
Well, I got to bring it up because you did. We got a senator, an assembly member.
Yeah.
That was there.
Yep.
Brought forward a bill that was supposed to stop this ordinance in its tracks and completely end it. Some reason or another, and I know the reason, and you know the reason, but this assembly member all of a sudden recanted on what he was saying and went the opposite direction of stopping this ordinance. He's currently running for Senate
write-in,
Senate seat out here, and he doesn't stand for the Second Amendment whatsoever. In fact, I'll put down that when he flipped, if you were to go to the Democrat of Alaska's page and read what they were putting out at the time, what he said on the assembly floor that night when they had the actual assembly meeting, what was it, about a week later?
Yeah.
When they had that assembly meeting, word for word, what the Democrats had put out on their page was what this new.
The other fun thing about him too is, I have a range at my own place. I have a range. I have a gun safe full of guns. That's always the thing. If you want to really see a politician, they'll start telling you about how many guns are in their gun safe. It's just like most people who actually are big pro Second Amendment guys, Don't brag.
They got a rack sitting up above
Well, that they don't
fireplace.
brag. They don't want people knowing how many guns they have. It's like a big invite, come to my house. And so I don't have to prove to people. I mean, people already know I'm a big Second Amendment guy. I mean, I'm about as big a Second Amendment as they come. And so I don't have to brag to people about, how many guns I have in my gun safe, or how many, people know I'm a big hunter. They know I have a world record elk. They know I have other stuff like that, because as we talk and we figure things out, but I don't have to sit there and put a picture of me holding my gun next to a dead animal and saying, I'm a big hunter. I'm one of you. I'm one of you. I fish like you. I hunt like you. I have guns like you. I don't have to prove it through a campaign ad. I prove it through my actions. And that's something we need to vet better of people, is going to say, okay, is this person only around during this last month or 6 weeks because they want to be one of us and they want to make sure they're seen in the right light and taking the right pictures and the right angles with the right things. And no, it's someone who lived their life according to that and lives their life that way, or has done things that never got paid for it, always donated their own time, always donated their own efforts, took time away from their family or whatever it took to fight for those liberty and freedom. And that's someone who's going to fight for it when it's their full-time, focus. And like I said, I don't say job, because being a representative is not a job. And for those who think it is, or those who are trying to get their retirement benefits from it, they need to have their butts voted out ASAP.
That's 90% of everybody that's in Juneau right now. I got to commend you, because you are what I call as a good example of what a state legislator should be, a servant of the people. The way you talk to me is not, you don't talk down to me.
No,
I don't
sir.
hear you talk down to other people.
No,
You're
sir.
always saying uplifting things. They may not like what you're saying.
No, not always.
But you are saying uplifting things, and you're always trying to bring a joint community effort together. During one of the rallies that happened this summer, and I promised that I would not mention the name of this rally, but at one of the rallies that we had this summer, you were there. It was portrayed in a bad light by everybody that was out there trying to spin differently from what really happened.
Yeah.
I am fortunate enough to know that the lies that they were spinning out there about that is just that, it was lies, because I have video recordings from start to finish that says otherwise.
Yeah.
And so the same thing comes to being a servant of the people as a legislator in Juneau. You represent the people. You are there to do what the people that have voted you into office have asked of you to do while you are there.
Bert, I've seen the lack of it. That's the problem. I'll be serious for a minute. I've seen the lack of standing up and doing the right thing. I've seen the lack of, or the indifference of good men and women. I've seen it to where we're too busy to focus on the things that need to be focused on, and the causes to get behind, and the speed in which it can deteriorate a state and a community is one of the saddest things to see happen. I mean, I really did used to love where I lived in Oregon. It was a logging town. Actually, Hatchers is almost bigger than any place I've lived at for years. It was always small town living that I liked. It was, one town we lived in was 400 people. It was loggers, farmers, ranchers, just good salt of the earth people. And to have that taken just because we all got complacent. We all got, indifferent to watching things happen because it wasn't affecting us at the time. But that framework was being laid to take freedom in one foul swoop, and it happened with mail-in ballots. Once the mail-in ballots came, kiss your butts goodbye, because it's over. It really is. There's not accountability. There's no integrity in elections anymore. And we have some really, really good people in the Valley here. We got like Brian Indle. We've got Holly Sheldon Lee. We got Jim Pazant. We got John Miller. We've got some really, really good people who are part of the election integrity folks that are just doing amazing work as making sure that we can rely on our elections and have full transparency. Actually, from what I'm understanding, we're going to get a hand count this year.
Yes.
Which is amazing. The fact that we know those will be counted.
If there's any questions in an election, there's going to be an immediate hand count because of what has happened with the mail out this year.
Yep, I think it's great. I think those people should be, and everyone who's volunteered. I just know those names because they were kind of the front people of it. I was actually at the first one with Governor Dunleavy, sat next to him, everything like that, and asked him a few questions afterwards. He broke away on his own and had a little secret meeting with us. It was kind of cool to have him, just sitting in this crowd and showing him our concerns, and he listened. So that was wonderful. But that's the type of stuff we need. People keep asking, how do we fix it here? Or just quick to always blame their legislators, quick to always point their finger.
But did they get out and vote?
Yeah.
That's the question.
And that's another thing. That's another thing that's actually true.
Did they call in and testify when they were given the chance?
There's another thing that people have been saying about me. It's always the fact I haven't lived here that long, which is comical. Because we look at people who have lived here forever, whether it be, Murkowski, Giesel, Imhoff,
Myself.
Go down the list. Go down the list of all these people who have been lifelong Alaskans, and they're not doing anything to help your state at all. They're hurting your state. I think that the fact that I've lived here since 2016 doesn't make a bit of difference. I own property here. I own a house here. I have 2 businesses here. I have not a nonprofit, but a political organization. My kids go to school here. I hunt here. I fish here. I love it here. This is the place I chose out of all the places I could have gone to finish raising my family and to live free. So I am Alaskan. And so, it's just frustrating. I say, how long have you lived here? It's like, that's not a litmus test. If that was a litmus test, 90% of the legislature wouldn't be in there right now. So
if that's a litmus test, then everybody that's sitting in our Air Force bases currently around our entire state need to pack their damn bags and get the hell out of here. Because
or the Army guys,
you're not an Alaskan.
Nope. So it's just that's one thing I've kind of coined. And actually I had Mike Tavalira try to steal it the other day from me. I coined a phrase called legacy leadership and legacy mentality here in this state. We just, for some reason, we hold on to those legacies instead of realizing that sometimes we need to adapt and sometimes we need to change for the better. You can't always just have the nepotism. You can't always have the legacies be the only people in charge. Because if that was really the case, we'd be a lot better off. We'd be the Dubai of the United States right now if all those people only had the righteous intentions for the state. Like I said, I'm here. The only reason I'm here is because I wanted freedom. The reason I'm running is because I see it deteriorating. I see what I saw in Oregon 10 years prior. That's what I see here now. And in 10 years, the difference it is now. We can even watch the news. You turn on the news and you see the way Oregon is. You see the property taxes, plus the income tax, plus this tax, plus the road tax, plus with Antifa there, plus with everything else, with them basically shutting down all state lands for hunting, federal overreach on everything else like that. That will happen if people don't wake up.
Yep.
And I don't care how long I've been here. The one credit I'll give myself is I know how to fight it because I've fought it there for so many years. And their playbooks don't change. If it's not broke, don't fix it. It's worked in every other state they've done. Why is it not going to work here?
First step is, and we've got 2 of them right now. Prop 1, Prop 2.
Yes, sir.
That's their first major steps that they're taking here in our Alaska. Prop 1. Where do you stand?
Absolutely not. No. I don't even have to think about it. We can't keep adjusting our promises. Actually lying, basically. We're basically lying. We're breaking our promises, breaking our contracts with people. Just because we overspent the past 6, 7, 10, 12, 20 years, that all of a sudden now we need to go back to the oil company and say, oh, you owe us more money. Well, how much money do we owe them for the exploratory stuff that we still back owe them? How much other stuff like that? We have this, the government's good enough for thee, but not, or good enough for me, but not for thee type mentality where we can keep breaking our promises. What if the oil company said, you know what? We decided this year sucks. We didn't make very much money. It was kind of hard. We're not going to pay anything to you. What do you think the state would do to them?
Kick them out in a heartbeat.
There you go. But yet we can go ahead to tell them, you know what? You had a crappy year. It was hard on you. A lot of guys are laid off. A lot of slope workers aren't going up because of COVID or because of the production costs. We're just going to go ahead and tax you more.
Well, I'll throw out there King Economics Group. They came out with their fiscal breakdown of the oil companies here just about a week ago.
Mm-hmm. Is that Ed King's deal?
It is.
Yeah.
They came out with the $9 billion in the last year our oil companies generated for our state here.
Yeah.
And themselves. After they got done in paying all their employees, the state royalty taxes that they got to pay, all the cost of operation and expenses, they were left with $1 billion of that $9 billion. Now, Prop 1 is saying we'll get $1 billion plus from these oil companies if we vote yes for this prop. Well, now wait a minute. They only made $1 billion, netted $1 billion. Now, I'm going to throw the irony behind all this. That $1 billion still was not part of their federal tax payout yet. They had yet to pay their federal taxes. So now they got to pay their federal taxes on top of that because this is their net. Now they've got their federal taxes to pay. Federal taxes now, thanks to President Trump, would have been 20% of that money. So they only got to make $800 million out of a $9 billion that they brought in for the entire year.
Right.
Now, out of that $800 million, they reinvest a portion of that money into further exploration and development. Are they really taking home $1 billion a year or more from us in tax revenue? But this is what they want us to believe.
That's our fair share. That's always I hate that term.
It's not our fair share.
No, it's not our fair share. It's us putting the screws with someone that we have a little bit of power because it's up here. And they already have it up here.
And they're claiming that we'll get a full PFD if we do this.
If you believe that, I got land I got oceanfront property in Arizona for you. They're not.
Well, that might be true if the San Andreas fault goes off.
That's true. Now they will keep. It's the same reason. Like I said, the KGB is not fixed, or the Glen's not fixed, or whatever, or we're only going to get $500 this time. The fact that we've let them use our PFD as a bluff tool or bargaining chip. And we've caved every time. We've habituated them to saying that's the first thing they're gonna. It's the ace in the hole. Their trump card. They're gonna pull out every time to try to defeat, and that way they can keep spending, and then we have to be all right with it. We have to make a stand sometimes. Say, fine, you know what? Give them $500. At least we know that you're not gonna get your CBR sweep, and you're not gonna get all that stuff that you think you're gonna have. So let's play chicken. Let's see who's going to bluff first.
It's like a junkie going to his crack dealer and up front, because you were paying the full amount, we're going to give you the best, richest stuff in the world. But now I only got $10 instead of that $100. Well, here's that 95% cut of baby laxative and baking powder, and here's your 5% that used to be 100% pure.
Yep.
That's our government treating our PFD. Here's your 100% pure that you used to get. We're the junkie. Now, because we only have X amount, we're going to give you this much now as a dealer. The government's saying, well, you're only worth this much. Now here's your 5% out of that 100% pure cut you used to get.
It all can be fixed real easy. Is make it a constitutional amendment for statutory calculation of the PFD. It's that simple.
It is.
And then the thing about it is that 90-day session will get a lot easier. We don't have to keep arguing about a PFD. This can be broken down by, instead of just 1 or 3 budgets total, you separate it into what do you need to run the state. That simple. Okay, that's your constitutional budget. That's everything the Constitution says we have to provide for people. That's easy stuff. If you actually need it or if you don't. Now we have another budget that would be discretionary. These are the programs for, whether it be earthquakes or road maintenance or other stuff like that, stuff that needs to be for infrastructure, things that we need to spend on to keep the state going that are not constitutionally mandated. And after that, we can have one more budget for any other emergencies or whatever else like that. We don't have to just keep passing everything in one big budget at the end and say, oh, you have to vote for this because they're so good about cherry picking. The problem is a lot of our people on the right don't sit there and say, well, there's abortion funding in there.
Yes.
We just go ahead and we pass that because it says, there's $2 million from my district. I better vote this because my people will be mad if I don't. Yet if the people knew there was, $150 million for abortion or Planned Parenthood, they'd be more pissed. They'd be upset. So which one is it? It's too easy to make those talking points, those political answers of saying, this money, I got it for you. Look at me, I'm the good representative. I got you this money. But yet, if people knew all the other money being spent and the detriment that'll be to their kids and their kids' kids, they wouldn't be patting these people on their back all the time and saying, "Oh, you're such a good guy. You're such a good girl. You're the best rep we ever had." It's too easy to cherry pick talking points, and people need to pay attention.
Lip service.
Yes, too much lip service.
The video that I posted yesterday, I'm going to bring them back up again, David Wilson, and that's exactly what he gave us was lip service. Look what I did for KGB Road. Look at how hard I fought to get you that funding for KGB Road. Yet, where was he when Governor Walker stripped that money out from the valley so that he could fund his LNG gas line to nowhere project? He took a fully funded project for our 4-lane road to go out there on KGB Road. Mm-hmm. Took every penny of that money and says, I'm punishing you guys out there in the valley,
right?
Because you won't follow my agenda. And I'm shifting this into my own little projects just to show you how I feel about you not voting the way I told you to vote.
Right.
And it's disgruntling and disgusting to see that these political games, and that's nothing more than what they are, is a political game with our lives.
Yeah. The impacts is what people don't realize. You know, it does impact your life, and it's, you know, it is too easy just to sit there and not pay attention. It's too easy to go home and play on your phone or to watch your Netflix or to spend, you know, or if you do spend time or cooking dinner or whatever like that. You know, this is something I've been saying for a while now is especially conservatives, for some reason we've become reactionaries. We're so quick that as we watch a freedom or we watch a liberty being taken from us, we react, and we react hard. But had we been proactive in safeguarding those liberty and freedoms that we have, we would take a lot less time, money, and effort to keep them intact than to have them taken and then fight for them back.
I get asked all the time, why am I sharing stuff that's over a year old? Why am I continuously resharing posts every 2 weeks? That happened 3 months ago. That happened 6 months ago. That's 2 years old. Why are you resharing those things? I care about the current information. I want to know about what's happening now. And I'm going, now wait a minute. This started 2 years ago.
Right.
When I posted this, it was 2 years ago that I caught.
And you either weren't paying attention or you were a naysayer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you didn't want to believe it then. And
Yeah.
I reshared it, and you still don't want to believe it. And then I share it again, and you still don't want to believe it. The permanent fund dividend is a prime example of that. A year and a half ago, I caught that everybody else, mainstream media, our legislators won't tell you, that they use tax revenue to pay our permanent fund for the very first time. I verified it. I mean, the closest person, legislator-wise, to give me an affirmative, that is what happened, was Senator Mike Shower.
Yeah.
And I had asked the pointed question, did you use tax money to pay a portion of our permanent fund dividend? His answer is it is what it is. That was the closest I could get a legislator to tell me 100% confirmation that is what they had done. I broke the story about it. It's been pinned to the top of my page ever since then. Mainstream media only once in this past year, and that was the ADN, wrote something about them using tax money to pay our permanent fund dividend with. This is the first time I had ever seen it in print from any other media source out there. It was I would say a 3-page long story that they had written in that had this one tiny paragraph in it that said that they had used tax money to pay a portion of our dividend with, and then the story just kept going as if they had never said it whatsoever.
Right.
So here's something that I had been rallying on since they had passed the HB 2001 last year, that this is when it happened in. And I'm constantly resharing it. I finally got so tired of resharing it, I pinned it to the top of my page so that it would be there for anybody and everybody to see. And they're shocked to hear this year that they did it again.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going, now wait a minute, why are you so surprised? I've been rallying on this since day one. Same reason why I reshare something that was 4 months old, 6 months old, 2 years old. There's a reason why I keep resharing this stuff. And you gave a prime example here. They're just not listening. It's not reactionary enough. It's not happening this second.
Well, there's three idea or trains of idea I've seen that have been the most detrimental. Is either it can't happen here. This is Alaska. That way of thinking is long gone, Bert. It's something you can't think that way anymore. I mean, whoever thought there's a red flag law that's sitting in Judiciary Committee right now in Alaska? HB 62.
Yep.
So, or also now, we're not getting our full PFDs. Now they're talking about a tax. Oh, that'll never happen here. Really? It's coming. If you're not careful, it's coming.
We've got one, SB 115.
Yeah.
Doubling of our motor fuel tax.
The gas tax, yeah.
Yep.
Which really hurts the fishing industry and a lot of your guys that are your long drivers, your salesmen, your construction workers. It doesn't impact the people who live in Anchorage, really.
It doesn't impact the people that live in rural communities, too.
Yeah.
Because they're driving their four-wheelers around in town.
Right.
Guess what's excluded from this tax?
Right. So it's either it can't happen here. That's one bad way of thinking. That's a dangerous train of thought, I'll say that. Or can't happen here. Or we've tried it before. I tried it before, I got burned out. They just ignored us. They brushed us aside. Lawyers said we couldn't do anything about it. Well, that's where you overcome and you adapt. That's a big part of it. You can't just say, oh, we better give up now because the government said we can't do anything about this. We have to always be vigilant. You always have to, and the other train of thought is, oh, my neighbor will do it. I mean, my neighbor's voting for me. I know this is a red state.
Oh, you remind me of that famous poem. First they came.
Yes.
First they came for my neighbor, and I said nothing. And then someone came for me, and there was no one to say anything. Exactly.
So yeah, it's just that complacency. Complacency is just an easy way of saying it. Complacency and indifference is the way we can see it, but we have to wake up. And I've been trying for many times. Actually, the gun store was the funny part where I tell people, hey, this is what's going to happen, and 3 months later it happened. I'm like, oh yeah, there's going to be a plastic bag ban. Oh, no. Bam, happens. How'd you know? Because they always try with something small, environmental, that inconveniences people, but they want to see how far they can push it. I said, now it's going to be something with guns. Something small, something big. Well, they didn't realize that, there's a few of us that were ready to fight it right off the get-go, and we knew this was coming down the line.
And sure enough, ordinance that they're
yeah. And so sure enough, boom, it's guns. People were like, dude, how do you know this stuff? I said, because I've seen it before in other states. I know their game plan. I said, the next thing they're coming for, mail-in ballots. What happens? Here we are.
Mail-in ballots, yeah.
And they keep telling people come up, they like, hey, LD, you knew. I said, yeah, that's the most dangerous one. That mail-in ballots is the most dangerous one. Because once it happens, you can pretty much just guarantee that every tax they want to pass, every bond they want to pass, every levy they want to pass, every long-term standing, ultra-conservative will be voted out mysteriously. There's very little integrity, very little accountability, and you'll watch your state go down the toilet. You really will, and it's sad to see.
And we're seeing it in Anchorage right now.
Yeah.
It's playing out tenfold.
It is. It's a little Portland, if you will.
It is.
It's just people need to wake up, and I keep saying that, but and there's people who have seen what I've said and seen it hold true that are waking up and helping me out, and they're definitely believing me in my cause and my cause to run. And this is what I want to safeguard. Like I said, I don't want to leave another state. This is my home. I didn't move up here.
There's really no other place to run anymore.
We're about out of them. I could always buy a sailboat. I found a sailboat online. I could just go sail around the world for a while. But no, I want this. I chose this place. I had any place I could have gone in the U.S. and I chose to live here. I chose to call this home. And so, I'll do whatever. I'll fight whatever it takes to keep it what I want it to be. What I want it to be free. I want to be able to hunt and fish without federal or state intrusion. Or shutting down this or making this more expensive. Always raising everything. Always can't get enough. It's a gluttonous pig that just eats and eats and eats until it eats itself, and then you just keep going into deficit after deficit and yoking your people with more taxes, whether it be property taxes or income tax or sales tax, until it gets to the point where no one wants to live here, except for the people who are working for the government, because they're the only ones that are doing well. So,
well, you got stuff like the state and capital budget. You've got Senator Kathy Giesel, you've got Von Imhoff, you've got Senator Coghill right now in his little video that he just came out with. They're all bragging about 44% cut to our budget. Over the lowest it's been, if we go by Kathy Giesel and her advertisements, the lowest it's been in 16 years. Last year it was, and I share the Twitter post from the state Senate majority, the lowest it's been in 15 years. On that particular post, I broke down the 2019 budget, and I have broken down the 2020 budget.
That was the shell game she's working, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Look at what we cut from the general, or not the general fund, but from the capital portion of the budget. Look at how these cuts equal 44%. Well, the capital part of the budget is what creates jobs out there.
Right.
Builds our infrastructure, makes us a more economically diverse country or a state to be able to make better income so that our budget could be able to technically grow. But instead of where the cuts need to come from, which is the general fund side of the budget, which is what's covering, as you were describing earlier, we must have infrastructure, making sure we got fire departments, police officers, that our roads are not swallowing our vehicles as we're driving down because of the potholes, those kind of things. Those projects are thrown out to the wind and saying, well, we're going to make sure that the social programs instead are going to be the ones that get the lion's share. So here we got health and social services. $2.47 billion budget is what they had in 2018.
Right.
$2.47 billion. 2020, $3.6 billion.
Yeah.
That's a $1.2 billion, $1.3 billion-ish dollar increase in just 2 short years.
Now, Bert, did our population increase by 33%? Am I missing something here?
No, our population actually dropped by a little over 7,000 people in that 2-year period.
So that
where
was
we were standing at
strange.
now to then, 7,000 less people living in our state.
And yet we needed 33% more money into those services.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's some funny money. That's some funny money math.
And then we'll go and throw even one more further into this. We've got a certain portion of our population that is federally mandated, or laws that it should say that make sure that their health care is paid for.
Right.
But that's not where our government and our medical services are billing first.
Right.
They're billing our Medicaid instead.
Right.
And they are not a part of the Obamacare portion of the program, which pays 90-10, which drops down to 85-15 this year. Just so you're aware that, in case you weren't aware, the expansion of the Medicaid program that Walker had done was, as was originally, everybody gets covered by Obamacare.
Right.
We get to pay only 10%. Federal government covers 90%. This was only a short-term program for that type of a split. Once they hit 2021, our portion increases by 5%, and it will continue to keep increasing until it reaches the 50-50 that the current Medicaid program is at right now, by 5% every year. So now we're going to be seeing our first year of increase, your first year in office, a 5% increase on what we as a state are going to have to pay to cover this program of the expansion.
Right.
So we got $3.6 billion spent in 2020. Can you imagine what 2021 is going to look like by the end of the year? I mean, if they're complaining about the $300 million surplus or supplemental budget that they had to add in this year.
Right.
As, oh my God, this is the highest we had ever done. Well, since the inception of the expansion, we've had $100 million to $200 million supplemental that has been added in every single year.
Yep.
$300 million. The only reason why it was $300 million is because the cuts that Governor Dunleavy had done. Federal government came back in and says because of the way your guys' laws are written. It had nothing to do that he couldn't make these cuts.
Right.
It had everything to do because of the way your current laws are written, you can't cut this budget. But if you as legislators go in, do the minor tweaks that are needed to these particular laws, lo and behold, you can do all of these cuts. You can make them happen. I recorded that particular testimony when that happened on television and it's up on YouTube and on my Facebook page right now.
Nice.
They don't want to admit that they could just change the little bit of laws and still do these cuts and saved ourselves that $300 million that it got increased this year. They want to completely ignore it. They don't want to do the work is what it is. It's like we've been talking about this whole time. You know, you've got people that are in the binding caucus that have sold their votes.
Well, it's easy.
And yeah, it's lazy.
It's lazy. Yeah, it's lazy. I don't have to think. I just have to do, and I get all the rewards because I'm in it for me. And my constituents don't get a voice, but I'll go there, every 2 years for a state house rep, and every 4 years for a senator, and I'll tell them I did a good job, and they should vote me back in there again. And people hear just positive media about them, or they hear outside PACs that are supporting them, or they have whoever just paints them into a great light. Until you actually do the work yourself and dig down to the nitty gritty and say, oh wait, he or she did vote this way. What the hell? What's going on with this? Why, until you actually do the work yourself instead of taking people's words for it, whether it be good or bad.
That's why they hate me.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, up until this last few weeks, the Republican Party thought that I was their golden boy.
Right.
I was the person that was their mouthpiece. I was reaching a lot of people out there.
Yep. And
then lo and behold, I expose all the corruption that is happening in our local governments, in the party itself.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really hard to expose the Democrats' corruption because they openly admit they're trying to steal your money. They openly admit they're trying to expand healthcare and cause the expenses of these things to expand.
Yeah.
But Republicans make it too easy to expose. They really do. Because they say they are for reducing this stuff. And as you just pointed out, if you go and dig and look at their votes say a different story. Their votes say that they are expanding it just as rapidly as the Democrats
we look at it also with, it's almost strategic. It's almost too coincidental to not be like planned. You'll have X amount of people there, especially for your CBR votes and your 66% votes and everything like that 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 people will just be sick that day. And they'll miss that day. And they'll duck the vote. That way they don't have to answer questions. And it's almost like they flip a coin to see who gets to take turns. I don't want to answer that question when they ask why I vote for that, so I'm going to flip the coin. You got to now. So then your election's going to suck next year, but I'm safe. I can just say, hey, I was sick that day. I wasn't there. I would have voted to save your PFD. I would have voted to save your gun rights. I would have voted for this and would have voted for that. But, I was sick. But then we watch other pictures of them just having a good old jolly time on boats or at home or whatever like that. And then, still collecting their PFD as if they were in Juneau. It's another one of those things. I'm entitled to that money. I'm entitled to it, whether or not I'm there or
collecting their per diem.
Yes, that's what I mean. Excuse me, per diem.
Yes.
And just
but they're collecting our PFD in the form of their per diem.
Pretty much. So yeah, people that aren't even there, still collecting per diem, still doing everything like that. And I was excused. Were you? What was your excuse? And how many times do you need that excuse? And over 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, 12 years, how many times do you need that excuse? If you were one of my employees, which you are, technically you are my employee, you're employed by the people for the people, you would be fired.
Mark, I'm going to bring in Mark Newman into this portion of the conversation because he's used this excuse.
Oh, yeah.
He goes, I'm in the minority. I might as well just be out fishing or be out working someplace else instead of sitting there in Juneau. Because my voice doesn't really matter anyways. I'm in the minority. Nothing I do or say is going to happen anyways. So,
right.
And guess what? Guess where he's out doing?
Fishing, everything else like that.
Everything else.
I thought he had a bad back injury, though.
That was only for 1 year. He's got a 16-year record. He's got a 16-year record to answer for.
Yeah, I guess so.
There's a difference between, and you're always in the minority for 16 years.
Yeah.
And this is the philosophy you have, and you want to run again and be elected again this year, and that's still the philosophy you have?
Well, the key is obviously you can't think outside the box then. Because we have people like Mike Shower who are still getting things done even though they're put in the corner because they're exposing the truth. So either one, you don't know what you're doing, or two, you're inept and you can't think outside the box. And either one of those twos are grounds for me to fire you.
Yes.
That's the same thing, even with
if you worked for me, I would fire you.
Yep. If you didn't show up half the time because you felt you were ineffective, well, either one, you didn't show up and you're fired, or two, you're ineffective, so why am I paying you? So it's that simple, and I've seen it, it's part of what my opponent has a problem with. Between his 4 years, as far as I can see, it's 198 missed votes. And I'm still hearing excuses made for him. Well, those were amendment votes, or they had like 40 votes in one day. But then you go and check the dates and everything, it's like, where were you? Why were you? There's always an excuse.
You were there all the way up until that critical votes. Time to be voted on.
And you better disappear quick, and that way you can say, well, I had this problem. Okay. But that was the CBR vote. That was the budget vote. That was the one thing that decided our PFD. That was the one thing that decided how much more debt we're going to sling on our kids. And that was the one thing you missed on purpose. I would say that. I can't say that.
Or they were there. They showed up. Yeah. They voted. They all the way up until that vote, they were a yes vote because of what they were wanting was there.
Right.
The final vote comes for the final bill. Their special committee met together of both the House and the Senate to hash out the final bill details. Everything that you had voted yes for was completely stripped back out of it.
Yeah.
Our full statutory PFD, our stimulus. I'm just going to bring this last year into it. And here's the COVID CARES Act money.
Yeah.
That's thrown in there too.
Right.
The sweep or the reverse sweep, depending on which direction you want to look at that, is also a part of this final vote.
Right.
And if you don't vote yes for this, we're not going to give you a full PFD because, lo and behold, we're using tax money to pay that half coming from this vote.
And your KGB road's not going to get fixed.
Your KGB
and every
road's
other
not gonna be fixed,
every other coercive, blackmail tactic they can do to keep kicking that can down the road, so people don't find out how much money they've wasted and how much they're still wasting and how much they're digging into our future, so they can keep that trend of spend and spend, 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 spend.
And here they are. They yes.
Yep.
I mean, I can care less what they vote on the actual passing of the budget itself. It's when that CBR vote, the second portion of that vote comes out, those are the legislators that need to be gone. And every Republican legislator that's out there right now that is looking at me and going, how dare you expose us on the CBR vote, especially you in the Senate majority and the Senate Democrat minority. You guys all voted for, except for one legislator on that CBR vote, to steal our stimulus and our statutory PFD this year, giving us excuses you had to.
Or we're not responsible enough to spend it.
Oh, yes, and we're not Jennifer Johnson and
Natasha
Von Imhoff actually admitting that we Alaskans are not responsible enough to spend our own money. Only government knows how to do that for us.
Yes. They know best. It's a good thing we have nannies in them, huh?
And I'm going to throw out there to the one legislator, Senator Laura Reinbold. I love you. You're gold. You are the only legislator in the Senate that voted the correct way on that vote. You have my backing 100% through and through until the day I die. As long as you don't change what you have been doing for the last 6 years, you've got my vote. I wish I was in your district. I really do. As for the rest of you, I love several of you. I wish that they would stick around. I really do.
Yeah.
I don't want to see them go. That's the reason why they didn't make my top 40 list of who to get rid of when I'm promoting out there right now. It's not that I want to see them gone because of a bad vote, but they're not the worst of the swamp that needs to be gone. If those other 40 people that I listed out of the 60 actually were there to serve us Alaskans, those other 20 wouldn't have voted the way they have.
That's part of our job too, is to inspire others and persuade others to the cause. To call them out and say, hey, does your constituent know that you're actually doing this amendment that's going to end up screwing them over for this many years? Yes. Or ruin something for their children's children? And be that vocal person. Like I said, be the Mike Shower. And actually, Senator Reinbold is also another person that is incredibly vocal.
Very.
Her and like Jamie Allard, a few other people.
She's one of the few that's come out against the mayor and what he's doing.
Yeah,
one of the few legislators that's
those vocal people is who we need. We need people who are unapologetically loud right now, and to ring the bell, because right now it's been all quiet on the front for them. They've been able to sneak things through, and they'll just tell little lies and they'll do other things like that to try to, and they bank on the fact that we're so vast, that our population is small, so vast, and we don't have those chains of communication. But it's beautiful that, people like you and other people have these rooms set up to where people are able to talk and everyone vets in information and we dole through it, we weed it out, and we're like, oh, this is what's really going on. And so we have that power, and I know it just drives them nuts, that we're starting to actually catch up and realize what's going on. And that's why we need to pay attention. We need to see past the platitudes. We need to see past the smiling faces and the baby kissing. And you need to look into who's the person who's going to be there that's going to fight nonstop. Like I said, when I get to Juneau, I want to set one record. This is the record I want to set when I get to Juneau. I want the biggest power bill. I want to be there till midnight every night. I want to be in there at 6 a.m. every morning. If I'm in the minority, that means I got to work twice as hard, doesn't it?
It does.
And so that's something. It's not time to go and go fishing, or to finish remodeling my house, or whatever it may be. That just because you're in the minority does not mean it's playtime on our dime while you're still collecting per diem and your salary and all other little ancillary benefits that come with it. It's time to work twice as hard. You have to outmaneuver them. You have to outwork them. You have to wear them down to where you can get your job done also. And that's part of being a fighter and a leader.
We're facing right now the kings and queen makers of legislators in Alaska. Earlier in the beginning of this, we brought up the legislators that are receiving national level from the Republican Party, national level campaign support.
Washington, D.C. money, yeah.
Yes, $150,000 has been flooded in the past week, going to certain legislators out there, and they're all running races that are against people that are incumbents, that are a part of the binding caucus, that are willing to sell out our votes to be a part of this caucus, against people like you. Your challenger is one of those that has received this national funding money into their coffers. Robert Myers in Fairbanks is seeing the same thing. John Coghill has received a huge portion of this money.
Right.
I believe Chris Tuck is another one that is receiving a huge portion of this money, who's running against, or whoever's running against Ron Gillum in Kenai right now.
He's passed.
Well, there was another one that's there
right.
that because of the seat that he's at Babcock or somebody like that, they're looking at throwing
Right.
a whole bunch of more money into his direction.
Right.
Senator Natasha von Imhoff is another one. I'm really surprised they didn't throw the money into Roger Holland's pocket.
Right.
But Gabrielle Leduc's.
Yeah.
And trying to make sure that rhino continues to be, where is that? Why are they so willing to turn such a blind eye to what is going on out there? I bring up your district one more time because of Rauscher. I recently exposed a big portion of corruption that went on out there.
I'm going to grab some more water real quick.
Go for it.
Go ahead.
Campaign financing that is involved with them, and the money that got thrown out there from 2016 all the way up through 18's elections and through now currently in 2020. There was donations, there was things that they were working on to say that, hey, here's a donation that we're going to give you. It's a .30-06 gun. It was donated by a felon. They advertised it coming from this person using false names for a convicted person that's not allowed to do it. 3 different felonies I exposed in this article that's out there. The money that was made from this contribution was supposed to be a split between Senator Mike Shower and between George Rauscher. Mm-hmm. That money didn't get split. It all got put into George Rauscher's expenditure of funders because he was supposedly running this really nasty race and he needed it. I'm told that there was coercion being used behind the scenes, that they were asking certain legislators, people that were running for office, certain candidates, that if you back out now, we'll give you a key seat in their department that you can now work if you drop out of this race.
Right.
Blackmail, coercion, I mean, there's not much of there's a real no fine line between those two words on how it is used to manipulate people into doing what you want them to do.
Well, that's something, I remember when someone emailed me, actually they instant messaged me like 12:30 a.m. and said, you need to get your butt on Facebook right now and watch this thing or check this thing out. And as I did so, I started reading it. It was like, oh. It just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And I'm like, oh boy.
And I'll put bottom dollar on it. That was not me. That sent you that.
No, it was not you. It was not you. It was someone in my campaign that said, hey, you need to see what's being said right now. And I was like,
I'll be honest, all I did was post it, and all the crap hit downhill after that.
I'll give the short and sweet answer about this, the no BS answer. Everything I saw on your post was backed up by public record.
Yes.
It's that simple. Now, sometimes if you want to make changes, you have to tell the cold hard truth. And all of a sudden, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And you can't keep protecting people or causes that are poisoning the well or going to defame the whole point of what you're doing. Sometimes you have to cut your losses on certain people who take their abuse of power and run with it, or that allow for things to happen that shouldn't happen. And that's what makes us conservatives. That's what makes us Republicans. We are people who are God-fearing people. We are people who try to strive to do the right, who use that integrity, that honor, that courage, that freedom, all the things that we believe in, all those, the things that our fathers and our forefathers, fought for and died for it and established here. To do this, sometimes we have to tell those truths.
Yes.
And even though it's hard, and even though you may like certain people or could not believe or couldn't fathom this could happen, why not be that party of honor and integrity? And if it means sometimes you have to tell the hard truths, tell the hard truths. Like I said, I've seen nothing contrary to what you've said. And I've even asked, tell me what's not right, or tell me what's not this. It's all backed by public comment, or a public record, excuse me.
Yes.
It's all public record. You can find it anywhere. Just nobody looked. We don't look at these things. We don't ever look into some of this stuff. And
I personally, in my interviews, one of my questions, and the only reason why I haven't asked you is I know the obvious answer to this already. Do you have a criminal record?
Negative.
Do you have a Me Too movement in your life?
No.
So you've already answered no to two of my questions that I asked everybody. Not every candidate has answered no to those questions. Out of those candidates, two of them, it can cause a lot of problems and has caused problems for them. One of them's got a recall in the assembly that has supposedly been rejected, but I'm pretty sure will be refiled again to meet their rejections of why that got rejected. And the other one is because of a past history that didn't happen quite the way it sounds.
Gotcha.
It was a consensual thing, but because of the way, once it gets onto public record,
oh yeah,
it's up to everybody to determine what that is. And then you got the big exposure that I put out there for the whole world to see. And that was validated, backed up, and took me months to consolidate all of that information and fact check everything and get the records into my own hands so I could say I got the hard evidence.
Yeah. No, like I said, I cross-referenced and confirmed everything you put out there. Whether it be court view or whether it be contacting a few other people like that and checking those records that, people can call you a liar all you want until they actually read it and then cross-reference those things. But there's, that's the thing is
I'm disheartened. I'm going to say
yeah, but you had people attack you for doing so. You have people attacking you for telling the truth. And that right there is why we're failing as a party. There's two reasons why we're failing as a party. We're so quick to eat our own if they don't toe the party line. So unless you fall in line like a good little soldier and you never question, that's part of what's going on with the Republican Party right now. The other part of it is we're dinosaurs. We're a dying breed. When I was bonus vote in District 9, I actually kind of made an ageist moment. It's not normally something I would do. But I told everyone, we have 40-some people, 50 people almost in this district committee meeting. I said, everyone age 40 and under, raise your hand. It was me and one other person.
Wow. And
I said, if that does not scare the hell out of you, I don't know what does. The fact that if you go to a Democrat one, you'll probably see a bunch of 18, 19, 25-year-olds. These people are learning from the past, or the older people are teaching them how to effectively move their agenda forward. We have most of the people age 60 and above that are at our committee meetings and our conventions. Where are your grandsons? Where are your nephews? Where are your nieces? You should be the ones teaching of the pitfalls and the snares and the things like that. The Republican Party is dying because we refuse to work harder and to bring people in. The other thing too is it's that power. The power of the people who are in the leadership, whether it be the district chairs, whether it be precinct leaders, whether it be state chair, whether it be whatever, they like having that control. As Republicans and conservatives, we are very self-sufficient people. We like to have our hands on things like this. Sometimes it's hard to pry those fingers off and say, hey, let's go ahead and pass the torch here. And so that's something we need to do is, like I said, we need to tell the truth, and we need to always have the utmost integrity and the utmost character as conservatives, Christians, Republicans, the people we know we should be. Number two, we need to train our youth. They've already been indoctrinated for the past 30 to 35 years.
They have. They go to college.
So what do you think is going to happen in the next 10? That we've not been bringing our youth into it. We've not been training them up how to be great conservatives and taking their knowledge of social media, of technology. When we first went to Zoom, watching some of these people who have never done Zoom before, I'm having to explain to them how to even turn it on to do this district convention meeting. You know, they are a plethora of knowledge. The people that are older in the party are a plethora of knowledge and wisdom. Now pass it down. Pass it down to your children and your children's children. Let's go ahead and bring people back up. There's not one reason in a district full of 16,000 people that we should have 42, 44 people in the Republican district convention.
Yeah, we should have at least 5,000.
Probably, yeah. At least I would be happy with 500 right now. 42. So then you pretty much take those 42 and the people that are on the leadership, they're the ones that push for pre-primary endorsements. They're the ones that pick their perfect little candidates. They're the ones that keep going on, you know, and disseminate information out. So basically you're being dictated by about 25 people on that district committee of who they think you should vote for.
I'm seeing that right now. We've had several different Zoom meetings. We had one about the binding caucus. We had another one about election integrity. These are the two biggest ones that I've been involved with here recently. Mm-hmm. Both of them are the exact same people showed up for both of these during these live streams. I didn't see any relatively new people that had shown up. The binding caucus one got more attention than the election integrity one did.
Right.
But they're the same legislators. They're the same people in power that you're describing to me right now that are making the kings and queens makers of the legislators go into office. Whether or not you received an invite to show up to these different Zoom meetings is a different story, and it all depends if you fall within their circle.
Right.
I personally doubt that I will ever receive another invite again to these Zoom meetings because I am so willing to expose the hypocrisy when they show it and display it.
Yeah.
It's disgusting to know that the people that are in charge of these Zoom meetings are also the same people that I'm exposing with the corruption that's going on within our party. And I really have a hard time saying our party because I'm not a registered Republican. I'll be honest with you, I'm not. I am a staunch conservative.
Yeah.
They can call me a libertarian if they want. They can call me a Republican. They can call me nonpartisan. Hell, I've had people call me a Democrat to my face. You know, that I think it was more as of an insult than anything else.
It's a pretty big insult.
It is. So, but it's one of those things that, you know, I've been undeclared my entire life for a reason because I do not believe in just one party's views. I pick and choose based upon my own feelings, what I think is right. But I've always stuck to one concept that's always been the same throughout my entire life. What is good for everyone, I am behind it.
Yep.
The minute you want to do something that protects a minority over the majority, you will find me rallying against it.
Yeah.
Very, very, very few things in my entire life have I ever stood for the minority cause.
Right.
And one of them would be like disabilities, people that are handicapped and stuff like that. You know what? I'm for their minority causes.
Right.
Because that is good for all, the way I look at that.
I agree.
But when you want me to believe that my child is a potato, and you want me to believe that against everything out there scientifically that says otherwise, then you're going to find me not supporting the minority. I am going to stick with the majority, and I'm going to back them 100% all the way every single time. That's where the fine line divides for me, and I think that's where it's been lost within our government too, is there is no defining mark that our legislators use anymore.
Like I said, we don't have a party platform anymore.
Yes.
If we abided by our party platform in this state with our legislators, half of them would be censured or out. It's that simple. No one abides by it. It's a matter of convenience now. Whether it be the pro-life, the Second Amendment, it doesn't matter what it is. Half the rhinos in there, and even some of the people who profess to be, champions to those causes, would probably be in some big trouble if our party platform was strictly adhered. We'd have problems, but it's not. It's loosely translated and more loosely enforced, which is sad.
Now, I would love, I hate to cut this conversation short. I would love to go on for another hour or two with you here.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm sure the audience that's watching this or will be watching
Thanks
this
everyone for watching. I really appreciate it. I know we're long-winded sometimes, but it's just simple truths. It really is a simple truth.
Yeah, we got to blame the mayor for starting out late. I wanted to make sure everybody had a chance to listen to the mayor and what he had to say, considering his dictator rule that he has going on in Anchorage and the lives he's destroying with his policies. And so we hung out as long as we could, but we've both got things to get to. Like today, you've got a chili feed, I understand.
Yep.
Are you entering into a chili of your own?
I didn't. I wish I would have had time, but I am donating a gun.
Okay.
So Edna DeVries asked me if I'd donate something, and of course, being me, I'm going to donate a gun.
Awesome.
So,
particular model or anything like that you're giving away?
It's a rifle.
It's a rifle?
Yeah, it's a Savage 30-06.
A Savage 30-06. That sounds like a really familiar gun to something I just got done.
Stop. It's one I got cheap from something else and just stop.
I will leave it at that. I got just a couple of
all right, please do.
For you here. I just couldn't resist on that one. It was too easy to set that dominoes up and knock them down. If you are voted in.
Yes, sir.
What would be the priorities to accomplish? Name a couple of them, because I know your list is extensive there.
It is.
And what bills would you push to pass?
First one, of course, would be getting rid of the Biden's caucus to make it illegal. To make it actually illegal by way of coercion and blackmail. Second one would be protecting the statutory PFD, make it a constitutional amendment that the statutory calculation is used. We need that money to go to our communities. We need it to save our small business. And we need it to, restore people's faith in a promise that was made from the government. The other one is a spending cap. The one caveat with that is not to try to be sneaky crap and put the PFD under the spending cap, which they were trying to do earlier.
SB 104.
SB 104.
People want to look up a bill that did that.
Yeah, and so the spending cap is government spending, not government promises they want to put in there so that way they can cap our PFD. So those three things. I think the other thing too is I'm definitely going to fight HB 62. I'm even surprised it's in the Judiciary Committee, the red flag laws. That is the horrible thing for
Darren and
Drummond and Josephson.
Yes.
Everything too is
the three people that are on my do not vote for list.
I hope they are.
They are.
The other thing too is I want some accountability. I think when people keep asking me, especially on Facebook and other things like that, where can you cut? You tell me where you can cut. There's plenty of places you can cut, but until we actually have a full audit, we have to have, whether it be an inspector general or someone who's empowered and authorized to audit this state, and that way we realize where our money's hemorrhaging out. Where these 2,500 plus ghost jobs are that nobody ever even shows up to a building, they just collect a check. Where are the operational inefficiencies of nepotism and stuff, of someone filling a warm seat with a deal because there's somebody's cousin or niece or nephew or aunt that does nothing to benefit this state, but everything to benefit themselves. I think we need to understand that we need better efficiencies in this state. We need to take some of the stuff that's still in the Stone Age, like our paper accounting system we're using for payroll, and actually use a computer system and get rid of like 4 people or transfer them into something effective that they can be doing to benefit the state instead of just passing time cards. We need to streamline, we need to get some operational efficiency, and we need some transparency. We need to figure out why the hell we're spending as much money as we are, as fast as we are, and then the same old excuses is you touch our spending, you cut our spending, we're going to cut law enforcement, we're going to cut teachers, we're going to cut all the infrastructure, or your KGB road, or Glen Highway, or Lake Louise Road, or wherever else. That's what we're going to cut, because God forbid we cut someone that has a overinflated budget and there's about 10 of them in there that aren't doing anything anyways.
Or an administrative job that they have 100 people doing one person's job.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, my final question of the night. Do we have a revenue or a spending problem in Juneau?
Definitely a spending problem. But that being said, we could have more revenues if we utilize our natural resources better. I'm not taking anything away from the spending problem. The spending problem is atrocious. Fact, it is a spending problem. But if we were no longer a one-trick pony with oil, and we had other things to fall back on. But I don't want to give government more money to spend frivolously until we have those walls, those defensive walls and those defensive limits set on them to where we're not going to keep losing our shirt and they keep wanting to spend more and more and more, and they get more accustomed to that. So we have to get checks and balances in place and defensive blocks in place to where we put limitations on our government. And then after that, let's go ahead and start bringing in the money, because we are rich with it.
We are.
Between our rare earth, between our coal, between our gold, between our timber, between our oil, we should be Dubai. We should have the guys that, with the Lamborghinis that are rotting in the desert, type thing. We should be, there's no one reason.
We should be another Iceland.
Yeah, there's not one reason we shouldn't all be okay.
Yeah.
And instead, it's exactly the opposite until we tell the truth again. Until the truth be told and people understand this is what needs to be brought forth, vetted out, kick the bad players out, and let's have people in there with the right intentions, right heart, and right spirit. That's when we'll get things done.
Well, thank you very much, LD Howard, who is running for State House District 9. I do appreciate all of your time today.
Thank you so much.
This has been a pleasure of an interview. I like breaking away from the normal. Here I have my entire list of questions. Let's run through them. Everybody's heard them all before.
Right.
They just haven't heard from the candidate what their opinions are on them.
I'm an open book, brother. I speak plain, I speak simple, and I speak truth.
There's a lot of stuff. The reason why I didn't ask you these questions today is because I already know where you stand on them. Anybody that has been following you since day one knows where you stand on them. I enjoyed the pleasure of being able to break apart more of our social issues and economic issues that are involved with them right now on a level that you normally don't get with another candidate just because they're just not up on the issues to begin with. I'm amazed at how many people out there that are running for office really don't understand how Juneau works.
Right.
You have a pretty darn good grasp on it. I would use other words, but Facebook would censor me for it. And I do appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And for all of you folks
Thanks,
out
guys.
there, yes, thank you. For all you folks out there in Facebook land, do not forget to share. Facebook squeals on you if you share. As always, I would like to thank the Windbreak Hotel here and the Trout House for generously donating this space to us to be able to provide these interviews in. Without them, this would not have been possible to have here today. And the last but the most important thing to me is this has turned into a full-time job. I am being attacked on every corner constantly, from the left, from the right, from those in the middle, or even our own mainstream media is starting to name my page Politidic by name. They're coming after me on all four corners, and they are not liking what I am currently doing at times. And that is exposing what they will refuse to let you know is happening within our state. I have broken so many stories. We discussed several of them here today, stories over the last couple of years now, that mainstream media has yet to ever let you know about, like tax revenue paying for our portion of our permanent fund dividends. Name me one media company besides me that has told you that. But I need your help. I want to do this full time. I currently own my own company. I run it. It's what's paying my bills, but it does not pay me for the time that I am sitting here giving this interview right now. I am donating my own personal time to do this. I am not paid to be here to do these kind of interviews.
If anyone from either my campaign or 907 Freedom will be watching this, because we're going to share it everywhere, if you can, please, we'll connect a link also to Politidic's anecdote, right?
Politidic.com.
Okay, we'll go ahead and please just send the man $5. Send him $10. He's working very hard. Yeah, he does a good job. He lets truth be told.
Appreciate that. So for those that are not aware, my name is spelled Politidick.com. That'll be found at Politidick.com. Click that donate button. I have many different dollar amounts that are sitting there from $5 all the way up to $500. I even have a couple of links down below to become a full-time subscriber to my page. And that's nothing more than a $5, $10, or a $20 donation that will come out on a monthly basis to help keep us financed. And all money proceeds are going to expand our content, upgrading our equipment, making sure we have wireless mics for interviews, things like that. every penny that I have. I'm currently saving up for a camera that has the ability to live stream to YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and all the media channels that social media is currently using out there right now at the exact same time.
Nice.
So that I will be able to give the content and a lot more platforms to make sure everybody out there is able to watch this at the same time and participate in these types of discussions that we're having. I am looking to do that this year, next year, the year after that. I want to continue to keep doing this. But again, without your help, this is a full-time job. If I'm going to be able to do this full-time, I got to be able to afford to make a living and put food on the table so that me and my kid can also eat too at the same time. So again, one last time, go to politidick.com, POLITADIDK, POLITADIDCK.com, politidick.com, and click that donate button. Everything you can contribute makes us, helps us grow one more time. And the last thing, always, Facebook squeals on you if you don't share, so share, so everybody out there can get to see this today. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, LD.
Thanks, Bert.